Veritas Forum, engaging university students and faculty in discussions about life's hardest questions and the relevance of Jesus Christ to all of life.
Well, thank you so much for that kind introduction, and thanks to you all for being here. And I just hope that you're all as excited to be here tonight as I am. Some people are fanboys when it comes to Star Wars or Game of Thrones and
whatever other show or movie you might be fond of. I am actually a fanboy when it comes to the two gentlemen who I will be moderating a conversation between tonight.
I shouldn't say PP, but it's possible that as inhabitants of Northern California and habitués of Silicon Valley, you're a little more familiar with PP.
Hey everybody, my name is Jake, and this is Sunday Service, a show with no clear, discernible brand, really. Mostly I just talk about whatever I want. I grew up in a high-control, high-demand religion. It was a patriarchal Christian cult. And because of that, I grew up with a lot of anti-feminist stuff. Just reading, hearing it from the pulpit or the stage. We didn't call it a pulpit. That's not really important. This isn't a stream entirely about pulpits. But I definitely, when I was a Jehovah's Witness, thought that I was like a nuanced thinker. I know that me and my wife, we thought that the headship thing was silly. We didn't really believe in that. But when I started questioning my beliefs, I had to kind of acknowledge that my thinking wasn't nuanced, that I was just supporting this harmful system. And so I've had to do a lot of deconstruction and thinking, and weirdly, a lot of the stuff that I was viewing around that time that started to get me questioning was feminist content. It wasn't always focused entirely on that, but a lot of the stuff that caused me to start thinking critically about my religion was takedowns of what was then called the alt-right, and people like Lauren Southern or Stephen Crowder or, God forbid, Charlie Kirk, God rest his soul, in our Lord Jesus Christ, et cetera, et cetera. And yet that stuff seems to be popular again. Things that were, to me, cringe in 2015, 2016 are suddenly becoming a little bit more popular. For example, on the New York Times, who recently published an interview. It's kind of a debate. It's a conversation that was originally called, Did Feminism Ruin the Workplace? They changed the title to Did Liberal Feminism Ruin the Workplace? And I happen to be obsessed with a couple of things, one of which is the degradation of the New York Times as a credible institution, and one of them is Ross Douthat, specifically the host of this fine panel that was held. Let me share a screen. Let me share a screen like I meant to do. There's our friends. These are our three friends who are going to solve this problem of feminism in the workplace for us today. And it feels like kind of apropos to the channel, kind of not, and it doesn't really matter. Nothing really matters. No, actually, a lot of things do matter. And I am obviously like an ignorant white guy, and I'm actually not like that. I totally am. I get stuff wrong a lot, so feel free to sound off in chat about the shit that I get wrong. I have not watched this interview conversation thing at all. I've seen a lot of posts about it. I've seen a lot of people, including the always based Miss Rachel, canceling her subscription to the New York Times. I canceled mine for some similar reason months back, but it was not particularly well received by people who used to read the New York Times. And alt-wifey is in chat. We're going to have Christina on the channel soon. My setup is like not good right now for having guests in general, having issues with StreamYard. It's like super laggy and weird, so we want to do it right. But I'm sure that she will sound off in chat and might pop in here. She is just in the other room. But I also know that a lot of guys will only listen to guys talk about this stuff because I believe anti-feminism is just inherently misogynistic. I believe that feminism is just, we all deserve to be treated equally, regardless of whether we're men or women. I think patriarchy is bad for men and women. But I'm not necessarily the most well equipped to talk about this. And generally speaking, I just want to make fun of Ross Douthat and, whatever person they have that's on the side of not feminism. Of yes, feminism did ruin the workplace, I guess, is going to be one side of this debate. And then I guess another side is going to be no, it didn't. It is good. But I did want to read something from somebody who really is smarter than me in a lot of ways. I figured I would read from Andrea Dworkin's Right Wing Women, which Christina was reading, and I was reading through it this morning to find like a good quote for what we're talking about here today, because if I know Ross Douthat, and I do personally, we're bitter enemies. He doesn't necessarily know I exist. That's not important right now, but he considers himself to be a nuanced thinker, kind of in the way that I did. But for all of his fancy book learning and $10 words, this Ross Douthat guy seems to consistently fall in line with the dumbest, repugnant pig men who take selfies with their sunglasses on, with their Trump hat in a pickup truck from crotch level. Like he is always agreeing with the dumbest shit I've ever heard. And so this quote from Andrea Dworkin kind of stood out to me. She said, anti-feminism can accommodate reform, a recognition that some forms of discrimination against women are unfair to women, or that some kinds of injustice to women are not warranted or entirely warranted by the nature of women. But underneath the apparent civility, there are facile, arrogant assumptions that the remedies are easy, the problems frivolous, that the harm done to women is not substantial nor is it significant in any real way, and that the subordination of women to men is not in and of itself an egregious wrong. This assessment is maintained in the face of proved atrocities and the obvious intractability of the oppression. She says, next, anti-feminism is always an expression of hating women. And I agree with that. And so, anyway, with all that, I thought we would check in and see what's going on with our buddy Ross. Also, thank you so much to people who donated to our GoFundMe and everything. We met our incentives. It was embarrassing to have to ask, but we really do appreciate it. And before I pull up this video, I do need to take a quick sip of water.
My church had been giving me ass to drink, but now I was freely receiving, the water of life.
All right, and put on my headphones. So let's see here. Now, I've had terrible luck with copyright strikes lately. I like the Joe Rogan thing. We watched, or tried to watch, Joe Rogan and Elon Musk. And it got like taken down while we were streaming. And so I don't know. I've just had bad luck with it. So I'm probably going to speed this up. I do pause a lot. That didn't seem to actually help when it came to the Joe Rogan thing. So we'll see if that actually matters. And do I sound okay? Sound is good. I'm not blowing out the microphone or anything. Oh, hey, speaking of blowing out, I don't know if people have been keeping up with the news lately. First of all, this is the transcript, a somewhat redacted transcript, edited, if we're not able to watch the video. Like, if this gets shut down, we will persist in the written form. And then, there was another thing. Oh, yeah, the Epstein shit. So that's a thing going on right now. One of which is possibly, although maybe not, Trump and Bill Clinton engaging in acts that, if Joe Rogan's going to get me shut down, saying what these guys did would definitely get me shut down. But the New York Times as an institution is so corrupt. And one of the things that happened with this tranche of documents that was recently released by House Democrats is that a New York Times reporter was in fact involved in the Epstein cover-up. Epstein reached out to a New York Times reporter in 2016 during the primaries where Donald Trump was running. He said he was the only person that could take Trump down. He sent stuff to this reporter, and it was sat on. It was totally covered up. And the only thing that they really have on their front page right now about the Epstein files, the most, like, easily the biggest presidential scandal in the history of the country, it says Epstein emails spotlight New York's former power players. Oh, and then if you click on it, it changes to Epstein emails reveal a lost New York. The disgraced financier's recently released documents are steeped in a clubby world that is all but gone. Wow, well, I guess we don't need to worry about it then. It's all but gone, says Sean McCreesh. Or like McYeesh. Yeah. Oh my God. Russia, if you're listening, release the files. So that's what's going on with the New York Times. And so it's a little interesting to me that Ross Douthat is kind of the premier podcaster at the New York Times now. Like, Ezra Klein is openly pivoting towards the right himself, but this guy who's just always been a Christian conservative who wrote a book entitled, I think, Belief, Why Everyone Should Be Religious. This is now the guy who gets to talk to Peter Thiel and make sure he doesn't get too many hard questions. Maybe just one that he'll immediately back off of. But if Hassan Piker's on the show, somebody who does not control that, sorry, I have this like one fucking hair that's like sticking straight out and it's driving me crazy. You know, if Hassan Piker or Tony Gilroy are on the show, he's going to really hold their feet to the fire and get them to admit all the communist stuff that they believe. Okay, so that's, and Ross, I should clarify, is the person in the center here. He would like you to believe that he's in the center of a lot of things, but this demeanor here. And there is something to me, it's just deeply depressing about all the news that's fit to print, like these iconic covers from the New York Times. I wonder if the one where they dismissed the threat of Hitler is up there somewhere on this wall. Maybe not. He's butt and center. Butt and center. All right. He is AIS, ass in seat. Although he does sit on chairs, kind of funny. And we don't know from this angle if his feet do touch the ground like they didn't in the Peter Thiel interview. Okay. I should speed this up just for copyright fears. And I forgot to post that I'm streaming to all my socials. YouTube really burying the streams recently. So I appreciate you if you're here. Because I have fun doing them. And yeah, by the way, the horse deserved a lot better than that, if that is true. All right. And do we want captions on? I think so.
The one thing I really couldn't get purchase on from your...
Whoa! Okay, immediately, I'll be real with you. That's a little fast for my slow brain. I'm going to go 1.25.
Say is, I never got a sense of whether there were female virtues at all from your piece.
If you want to know what I like about women,
that's not my question.
You can ask me. In fact, I invite you to commission from me an entire essay on the subject, what I like about women. My freelance rates are very reasonable.
What do you like about women?
What I like about women. Just that iconic song. Here, I'm muting it so we don't get dinged for the
really
iconic
different.
Ross Douthat.
But what do those
song.
Differences mean? Should the right be trying to roll back the entire feminist era?
Whoa, okay. Sorry, I shouldn't have muted it. I thought his intro would be longer than it was.
Men and women are really different.
Right.
But what do those differences mean? Should the right be trying to roll back the entire feminist era? Or is there a conservative feminism that can correct liberalism's mistakes? My guests this week are both conservative writers, both critics of feminism, both women, who have very different views of what a right-wing politic...
I actually don't know about these. The Great Feminization, Helen Andrews. That seems like probably the one that's anti-feminist. And then the one that's called The Dignity of Dependence? Well, hang on. I actually don't know what this means.
Gender should look like. So Helen Andrews, Leah Labresco Sargent, welcome to Interesting Times.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
He's so
And,
delighted.
I should note, this is
You're
the
so
first time
welcome.
the
Thanks
show
for
has
being
had
here.
more than one guest. So it's a radical experiment for me as a host. So I make no promises about how I will handle the
Christina said he's
disagreements
never had
or
two women
agreements to
talk
come.
to him before at
But
the
you're
same
both
time.
here, I'm sorry to say, as theorists. And I'm going to ask, or we're going to try to debate your theories. Helen, you recently wrote an essay.
What is the... Okay, well, this is immediately just weird to me. What is the theory? Are they both anti-feminists? Oh, wow. Well, maybe they are. And then this is going to be a very interesting conversation. Ah, okay. Yeah. Okay, so they're both anti-feminists. Well, that's not what I thought this was going to be.
Entitled The Great Feminization, that attracted some commentary on the internet and argued, at least in my gloss, that feminism has failed us because it's made our institutions
Ross
too
Douthat
feminized,
and Helen
driving men
have
and
the
masculine
most just,
virtues
like,
out. And Leah,
smell
you
the
have a new
fart
book
face.
called The Dignity of Dependence, where you suggest that liberal feminism has failed us by forcing women to suppress their nature and fit into workplaces and social systems made for men. So those are two fairly distinct critiques of feminism as it exists.
So they are both critiquing feminism, but in a directionally different way. I didn't even really understand the distinctions between those two arguments, but that's because I'm tired.
But before we dig into those arguments, I want to start by asking a really simple, basic, and easy question. And I'll start with you, Helen. What is the difference between men and women?
I feel like
Define a women in such a way that excludes all non-women and includes all women. I feel like I'm a Supreme Court justice nominee. Very funny joke, except no. Obviously, this would be the first question that anybody who's a theoretician on feminism will be asked.
I'm a Supreme Court justice nominee.
I
Well,
don't know
no,
why you
because
feel
the
that
Supreme
way.
Court justice nominee is allowed to not answer, but I'm
I
afraid
don't have that privilege.
that you don't have that
Very
privilege.
droll
Well, thank you.
indeed from Mr. Douthat.
I think that question starts us off backwards, because in the piece that I wrote about the great feminization, I did not start from my opinions about what the differences are between men and women and then
Maybe we
proceed
should
to
look at these
speculate on
shitty
how that might
articles.
affect our institutions. I started by observing our institutions in all the ways that they seem very clearly self-evidently broken and not working the way that they're supposed to, in ways that you could sum up in the word wokeness. So
you could, but is she going to define wokeness?
think that there are some generalizations that can be made about tendencies that are male or female, masculine virtues and vices, and feminine virtues and vices.
Define
But
them.
those things are always a spectrum, and
Oh,
it's
you
hard
can't.
to get a grip on them. And if I sat here and said women tend to be more emotional while men tend to be more intellectual, you could have 5 perfectly valid objections to that right off the bat. So I think I will restrict myself to the
not answering.
judgment on which I am confident, which is that the pathology in our institutions known as wokeness is distinctively feminine and feminized.
The pathology known as wokeness. So she's just saying the woke mind virus, but with different words. That is such an interesting way to not have to define anything. Like, well, if I went and defined stuff, you would tell me I'm wrong because I would be. So I just won't, and I'll just say that it's wokeness instead, which also doesn't describe anything.
And
also the thing I won't describe is very feminine.
Sense, our institutions have gone woke because there are more women in them than there
Gone
used to be.
woke.
What is the nature, the essential nature of wokeness that you associate with
question.
a certain kind of feminized politics or feminized ways of relating to other people, relating to colleagues or coworkers or anything else?
Let's pick one flavor of wokeness, and that is the Me Too.
No. That's cheating. I hate, and this is my face, I hate to be on Ross's side here, but this is so weaselly right off the bat. I hate this. These are people who will refuse to define feminism and wokeness, and yet the entire conversation hinges upon the assumed fact that there is such a thing as wokeness, and also that feminism has gone too far, but I won't define what feminism is. And even though I have very trans-exclusionary beliefs on what a woman can, I keep saying what a woman can or cannot be, I'm also not going to define it because this is all just fucking rhetorical musical chairs. I hate this. QCBI 2000 says MAGA, what is a woman? Megyn Kelly, what is a child? Oh my God. Yeah, shame that we couldn't get Megyn Kelly on this. What about, okay, so a 15-year-old who in Megyn Kelly's eyes is an adult, like the 15-year-old who works at Kroger, is she bringing feminism to the workplace? All right, so this is why I was reading right-wing women, assuming that I would have only one right-wing woman talking in this conversation. But no, there's two. But basically, I'm
feminized politics.
I was about to
feminized
summarize
ways of
Andrea
relating
Dworkin,
to other
like,
people,
that's
relating to colleagues or
too much
coworkers or anything
for
else.
off the bat.
Let's pick one flavor of wokeness, and that is the Me Too movement. It was not just an increase in the volume of sex scandals. There have been sex scandals since the dawn of politics, and it was not just that there were more of them than there used to be. If it were simply a matter of more women having the self-confidence to speak up and challenge their accusers, I don't think anyone could possibly object to that.
But it started to annoy me personally, and I became irritated by things I was seeing on the internet that I could have ignored, but I didn't. I chose to focus on the annoying shit that I didn't like, and thus I was able to stay whatever kind of dipshit conservative I am. No, that is exactly what the Me Too movement was. The reality is, it was not a movement in the sense that, like, the civil rights movement was a movement where there was a clear, articulated end goal that they wanted, right? Or like the LGBTQ movement, like Stonewall, like actual gay rights movements where they are fighting for a thing. Me Too was just a hashtag that started on Twitter that anybody could post their story. I'll have to deal with arguments, even though both women probably agree on everything. Like, they're just disagreeing on how feminism sucks. Okay, so let's see what the Me Too movement was. It's pronounced Me Too, right?
It's not what the Me Too movement was. The Me Too movement was a change in the rules of how sex scandals work. There was a change in what kinds of behavior were held up for censure, and you had people like comedian Aziz Ansari being canceled for what was, at the end of the day, just a bad date. And
God damn. I mean, this is literally just Twitter arguments from 2018. And it's like John Mulaney has a joke about, like, he starts making some jokes about Home Alone 2, Lost in New York, and then the end joke is just like, those are all just opinions I had when I was 8, but I wasn't a stand-up then. This feels like, oh, I wanted to be able to say this on a really important show, but they just haven't gotten over the perhaps overzealous cancellation of Aziz Ansari, maybe, but like, okay, all right. And also, were there really rules being made? Was this a movement that was saying, here are the new rules for how we deal with sex scandals? Or was it this person's perception of culture based on what they were seeing on social media? Like, how much of that was really happening? Like, Me Too didn't really affect just, like, people who weren't social media figures or celebrities. You know, that if it's not that, then it's just sexual harassment, right? I mean, I don't know. Check me on this. I don't agree with this.
Guilty of not much more than severe awkwardness. It suddenly became mandatory for us to believe all women.
No, it did
no matter
not.
how credible
It
or
obviously
incredible.
didn't, because you didn't, and here you are. It was not mandatory to believe that. It was just, you know, some people said it might be good to not immediately disbelieve accusations of rape. You know, to not immediately start defending the alleged abuser, and to take the testimony of women seriously. Like, no one can force you to believe anything. And yes, sometimes people lie, whatever, but like, this is the kind of rhetoric that I find so stupid and disingenuous. Like, these rich, bougie assholes weren't forced to do fucking anything, and she was making good money talking about how the Me Too movement was stupid during Me Too. I would be willing to bet.
Their testimony might be. It got to the point where to even probe a woman's story with various questions about the facts of the case became an affront and disrespectful to women. So that, to me, is the essence of wokeness that you see in all of its other variations on campuses or in the workplace. Shutting down conversations, intruding politics
They're
to
shutting down
spheres that had previously been neutral, sort of importantly neutral. Pillars of civilization neutrality, things like the rule of law, were suddenly subject to politicization in a way that was really, really harmful.
Because of accusing Aziz Ansari of taking his dick out, and that's what caused the degradation of our institutions. She didn't even say how. We escalated from some celebrities were unjustly canceled to, therefore, our institutions were corrupted by wokeness.
So I don't know. I don't want to say that we all know what wokeness is, but that at least were its important characteristics from my perspective. The things about it that worried me the most.
Okay.
I don't know what wokeness is, but here's a thing that happened that I think was wokeness. Is that...
I have more questions.
Is that how words
I want to start,
work?
Leah, with a fairly direct question, because you are identifying yourself in your book as a particular kind of feminist.
This is the thing. I don't understand. And by the way, so much of this is not about men and women at all, but the incentives of social media algorithms and the fact that for the first time, a person could make an accusation on social media that would be seen by a lot of people, including perhaps the abuser or people who were defending that person. It's just different when we're all seeing each other's shit all the time. And so just by the very nature of what Twitter is, how it operates, and the fact that someone can post something and can be seen by hundreds of millions of people, perhaps, that's just not a thing that existed back when Harvey Weinstein was cutting his teeth, shall we say, right? Like back when Bill Cosby was drugging women and raping them, you couldn't do the kinds of things that you could do with a Facebook post or a Reddit post or a blog post or a Twitter, and now TikTok. It's just different. Like we live in a different kind of world because of this technology, and because of that, people are, yes, like lies can travel fast, but what really happened is just people were seeing shit they didn't like. And a lot of people who don't want to have to think about this stuff, who don't want to have to think about the way our society systemically subjugates women and treats them as lesser, maybe because the people at the top are Christian conservatives who believe in headship, like Ross Douthat. Maybe it's because of women who just have internalized misogyny because they want to be accepted within these predominantly male institutions, whatever kind of psychological reason. They're just describing how the world's changed. They didn't like it. Well, that's very important. Is it Sky? Says, from what I recall, the Me Too movement, like the BLM movement, were decentralized versus the conservative movement with obvious institutional leadership. I mean, the BLM did have some centralized leadership at times, but you're right. Like, it was mostly decentralized movements of people just being like, fuck this, I'm going to join in on this conversation. And, I think the reason why for conservatives every accusation is a confession is because they do believe in systemically mandating that people believe the same things that they do. And lowercase l liberals do not believe that. Ross Douthat does not believe in religious equality. He believes in religious supremacy. I don't know that he's quite a Christian nationalist. I think he's probably erudite enough to know that God did not choose America, or he doesn't believe in the kind of curse of Shem stuff, probably. Was that what that was called? We talked about it on the last stream. But again, he's reaching the same conclusions as all these guys. So anyway, this kind of vague posting about really serious shit from the paper of record is really cringe to me. I mean, this is the kind of arguments I would expect to see on Megyn Kelly's bullshit show, where she has on pastors who talk about exorcisms and how people can be haunted by playing with a Ouija board.
Ask you, what is wrong with existing feminism, liberal feminism, and how has it failed women?
So I think the essential problem is that there's a strain of feminism that sees any difference between men and women as a threat to our equality. You can see this in a variety of ways, something pretty small scale. There's a lot of going back and forth on the college level about where the three-point line should be for men and women's basketball. Should it be equivalent?
What is with these fucking people in women's sports? As if they ever gave a shit about them before it became like a rhetorically convenient argument. Let's see. I kind of agree with this, but I've also known women like this who protect their abusers harder because they shame themselves for something that they didn't do. No, I agree. What's really harmful is that there are women like this who protect men who would take whatever opportunity to sexually abuse them. They're protecting their abusers, and that's what's so upsetting and gross. Yeah. I mean, that's what is clear about the Epstein file situation is you have Carolyn Leavitt and Pam Bondi and people who clearly know exactly what's going on in those files. And, you know, to say nothing of Kash Patel and Mike Johnson and Dan Bongino and all those guys. But at the end of the day, their entire rhetoric, Curse of Ham, that's what it was. Yeah. It's just about defending these abusers. Like, their stated reason for getting into politics and what they were campaigning on was to protect women. I will be your protector. I'll be your protector. I'll be nice. Maybe not too nice. Like, a lot of women, I worked with a right-wing woman who, like, I found out that she was the Trump voter stereotype wasn't a thing in 2016, really, because nobody thought he was going to win. And so I thought this, intelligent, married with kids, medical assistant who was going to school and clearly very ambitious would have been totally upset by the Access Hollywood tape. Like, I remember, and I was a Jehovah's Witness at the time, total hypocrite. Didn't vote in the election because I wasn't allowed to. But I remember just thinking, like, well, I mean, obviously, like, who could possibly defend him after that tape where he said those things? And, religious people, if they're going to reject Bill Clinton and demand that he be impeached for Monica Lewinsky, blah, blah, blah. And nope, turns out, like, she voted for Trump. And that is, I have a hard time understanding it, but also all the women in my family are very strong, independent, funny women with really distinct personalities, but they're, they're willing to forego their ambitions and cut people out of their lives who question the institution of the religion itself, who question its fundamental unfairness. Yeah, like, name one feminist you're reading and why they believe that. And surely where the 10 or where the 3-point line or where the 10-yard line should be, whatever the fuck she said, like, physical differences in, like, muscle mass and shit, or having a uterus and a womb, like, that's one thing, but the interiority of you as a person and all of the emotions, like the human experience and our innate right as humans to dignity and respect and human flourishing, like, why doesn't that win out? Why are the intractable differences these stupid things that don't really have any or needn't have any effect on human flourishing, like who can lift the heaviest shit? Like, I feel pretty confident that in a matchup with any one of these women one-on-one, Ross Douthat loses 10 times out of 10. He loses 100% of the time.
Equivalently hard for a man and woman to hit the shot, or should it be at exactly the same spot so no one can say the women aren't playing as hard? I don't actually care that much about basketball, I'll level with you, but I think that anxiety that to draw two lines on the court would in some way imperil women's dignity is wrongheaded. And you see it have a real cost in other domains where that attempt to treat women like defective men who are nearly identical, nearly swappable, and when we can close that gap, no one will be able to tell us we're less than, ultimately does a fundamental injustice to women, and it results in violence towards babies. Because, of course, pregnancy is the most obvious way women differ from men. It won't ever be fully closed.
And a big part of
Violence towards babies. The thing that the New York Times is actively suppressing at all costs, and its own complicity in child rape by powerful men in this country. Just as a
Your
little
argument
side note.
is that the institutions of American life or Western life since the feminist revolution have basically said to women, yes, you can join up, you can have the jobs you want, you can have the equality you want, but we will not accommodate ourselves to what you just defined as the greatest female distinctive, right? So you have to, in effect, become as men in order to enter the professional classes.
And when you aren't, it's kind of a personal hobby. You hear that language of personal choice, not only on the left with regard to abortion, but for conservatives in opposition to things like SNAP benefits for unmarried women. Well, you chose to have this baby while you were poor, and everyone knows you could have chosen differently when that could entail not having sex or killing the baby in the womb after the sex has been had. So there's a sense of the baseline person does not have someone depend on in this way. I think pregnancy is the starkest example.
I have a hard time following what her argument even is there. This is the worst thing I've ever seen. So she's just like a full-blown, I think that a fetus has more dignity and worth than the mother kind of person. Like, she's just like, well, that baby is the exact same thing as an adult. And we all know I don't actually give a shit about adults. But I think a woman should sooner kill herself. Like, what are we talking about? Yeah, that's the only thing she could possibly mean. But, like, again, like Andrea Dworkin talks about this, when abortion was illegal, it didn't stop abortions from happening. It stopped safe, monitorable, let me try a different word. Couldn't really figure out that one. Let's say safe abortion. That's all it stopped. It caused women to have abortions in hotel rooms instead of at a clinic. And again, it shows an extreme deference towards rapists and men. The fact that you should be forced as a child, even in the eyes of Megyn Kelly, a child, like a girl in Ohio who was like 10 or 11 years old and had to go to Indiana across state lines to have an abortion when it was in a flux here in Ohio. They just don't give a shit about that because they believe at the end of the day, this is the way things are. Men and women are different. They ought to be different. And so there is no social justice solution to this, nor can there possibly be, and there shouldn't be. And any attempt to provide equality is wrong. It's wrong-headed. And it's just fucking disgusting. Like, I have this book from the library that I haven't really read a lot of, except for the chapter on Ida B. Wells, but it's about, I think it's called Sensational. It's about women journalists and how they, just the early days of women in journalism. And these women would not be sitting here next to the New York Times article about man walking on the moon if it was not for feminism. And now they want to strip those same rights that they had away from young girls. Like, what is this shit other than just mean-spirited, small-minded, petty, religious hokum pokum bullshit?
The gendered example, but the sense that the fundamental nature of the human person is someone who isn't constrained by someone else's need isn't just a problem for women. It's a problem for all of us because each of us has people who depend on us, even if we go through our whole lives childless, because we have parents who increasingly are aging without the supports to
except when
age
you
all
don't,
alone.
Because they abandoned you or died or whatever.
Between dependence and weakness, even though
like it's like she's saying. I mean, clearly what she's saying is people who are poor deserve to be poor. They just could have done something different. And if they had done something different, then they'd be like where I am. A rich, famous lady wearing a cross necklace on the New York Times, doing everything in my power to kill as many women as possible. Because guess what happens when you outlaw abortion? They die.
Everyone
More women die, as is already happening.
Part of your argument is that by necessity, women are more dependent sex in some ways. What distinguishes that from saying women are just the weaker sex?
So here's where I will push back on the definition. Women are more directly exposed to other people's need, but historically, men also view their bodies as something they extend over someone else who needs them, not over a baby through pregnancy.
Perhaps because it's a common human need and we're all the same. If men and women aren't equal, then how come I find you just as annoying as I find Ross Douthat annoying? And I think you both deserve to go to opinion jail. It's like the prison that Ghislaine Maxwell's in, so it's not that bad. And if anything, it's just kind of like a little vacation. So Christina says, the Republican Conservative Party doesn't know what they believe. They tell women to stay home and take care of their families, but if it's a single mom, they should be out there working to provide. Yeah, exactly. Because it's like, well, they shouldn't have gotten pregnant without a man. That's their fault. Now they just have to carry their burden. Like Christ said, you shouldn't have to, because he was dying so that you wouldn't have to do that, and you should take his yoke. That's not important. She also says, you can't have it both ways. You can't tell women you've ruined the workplace because of feminism, but tell the same women to stay home. And yeah, these people are fucking freaks about pregnancy. All they think about is fertility and how to get more people pregnant. And like,
by placing themselves between
how
an
much
outside
effort
threat
is Ross
and their
Douthat
family or
making
their
in that
country.
department? That guy
We live
better
in
have
an
12
unusually safe
million
and prosperous
kids.
time, so it's much less likely that you will think, I will take a wound to my body for the sake of my family than that your wife will.
But so then
I don't
it is
understand that.
fundamentally issues about biology, family, and reproduction, where you would say that liberal feminists...
So nobody, and this, I am sorry for the edgy atheist to come out, but if you wear a cross necklace, you're not allowed to talk about biology. Okay? You have resigned your right to talk about biology as a serious person. You don't actually care about it. You don't, because if you actually cared in biology, you wouldn't believe in the fucking Bible. Okay? So you're just using it as an excuse. Because you're going back to a text where modern biology didn't even exist. Like, all they're doing is taking smart-sounding shit to reinforce shit written down by, like, agrarian Bronze Age farmers.
Essentially asks women to postpone, delay...
That goes for Ross, too, by the way.
Things that are natural to women. But so, Helen, working off Leah's argument, you have a conception of essentially that there is a kind of evolutionary story in which men evolved to be warriors, putting their bodies in front of their families or their communities, taking
Obviously, can we consider the fact that the person saying this is this guy? Is this a warrior? Is this the guy who would have been on the front lines fighting for the kingdom of God? Or would this have been the guy fucking boiling some potatoes at the camp? And some of the stronger women would have gone out and have been warriors. You fucking idiot.
and so on, and that women evolved to be warriors. Can you talk a little bit about that distinction and where those phrases come from?
Full-blown evolutionary
that
psychology.
Phrase comes from a psychologist called Joyce Benenson, who did a book called Warriors and Worriers. And that is a book that I found very enlightening because it was not
must be
about
stupid,
the differences between individual men and individual women. That's something that there has been subject to a lot of study, that you give men and women polls and they will give different answers to your surveys. Her subject was group dynamics. How do groups of men interact versus how do groups of women interact? And that seemed to me to correspond very closely to the changes that we would describe as wokeness. Her
Wokeness is just this mysterious tide of changes. What are shield maidens? Tell me, explain. Yeah, and then as soon as the baby's born, they don't give a shit about you. Don't abort a baby, but also we don't want you to rely on the government when you have that baby. You can't be pro-life, stopping people from having abortions, but also don't believe in taking care of them. You're like, yeah, exactly. Oh, taking care of those children when they're here. And they don't. They're like, you should have more babies, and your job as a woman is to have more babies. And by the way, if you rely on SNAP benefits to take care of your babies, you're full of shit. That's what they think.
theory is that this originated in the midst of prehistory.
Wokeness originated in the midst of
To
prehistory.
have warrior bands, which meant they needed to have hierarchical structures. They needed to know how to take orders and give orders and not take it personally when their leader made a choice that they didn't agree with.
Wow, that's amazing. How are they tapping into the little disagreements that the ancient warriors have? Like, how are they getting that from the fucking fossil
And
record?
that they needed to be able to engage in conflict, to fight.
Now,
and then when
Uga.
that fight was over, you need to be able to
Don't
make
bother
peace.
me when I'm out
And that
slaying
women, being
wildebeest
more oriented towards child
and
rearing,
saber-toothed
were more
tigers.
likely to have protracted conflict with their rivals within the tribe.
Writing a dumb
and
fucking
less likely
article.
to reconcile at the end.
That's her
There
credentials.
are similar insights that can be gleaned
warrior
from
women.
primatology. Now, when
Like
you're talking
the
about gender
Amazonian
differences,
snoo women
I think you need
in
to
Futurama.
hold different kinds of expertise as having varying levels of credibility.
Yeah,
But,
I would say that you, for example, have zero credibility and you sound like a moron.
I think that the insights of evolutionary biology or primatology are at least interesting fodder. I don't know that if somebody gave me that book and said, now
That's kind of what I
speculate on
said.
the results of the
It's
feminization
interesting
of institutions
fodder
would be, I don't know that I would have
for the theist.
guessed that they would be as
Not
dramatic
that
as they have
important,
been.
though.
But when I look at wokeness and say that it has
Which you don't
coincided
know
almost
how to
exactly in time with the demographic tipover of various institutions from being majority male to majority female, and
What? Like what? Like what? What is this institution that is now predominantly female than predominantly male, other than like the U.S. government? But the U.S. government's not predominantly female. There's just more women than there used to be. Like, here's what I want to ask. Do they think that a woman should be allowed to be president? And if so, how do you reconcile that with all the other dumb
if
shit
the
you
changes
believe?
of wokeness resemble feminine
Why-
behavior as
why
described
do
by
they have
evolutionary biology, then I
jobs?
think that maybe that starts to make a lot of sense.
So, Leah, are women the problem with wokeness?
No, I don't think so. I think America is a country of repeated religious revival, and this was one of them. It swept up both men and women and came out of a fundamental sense of, what's wrong with us, right? The fundamental question people are...
Okay. One thing that must be remarked at this time is that being anti-woke is implicitly... Oh, God, I really scratched myself there. Or maybe it was one of the cats. Or Peach. There's so many options who could scratch me. Or Christina. No, probably not. Yeah, they don't want you having sex outside of marriage. And if you're married, you're supposed to want to have as many kids as possible. That's their logic for persecuting single mothers. Yeah, they're loose. Yeah. This is something, again, I was just kind of skimming this book. I need to read it cover to cover, but that was something that she was saying in terms of people like Anita Bryant. Like, if you haven't watched ContraPoints' video, like The Witch Trials of J.K. Rowling, her response to that shitty podcast, she talks about Anita Bryant becoming this Christian conservative woman who was most famous for being anti-gay and being militantly against equal rights for gay people. But what she managed to do in marketing herself as a anti-gay Christian woman is she managed to get away from her husband that she didn't like and her kids that she didn't want to have. And she got to be this independent woman that benefits from a liberal society while still like caping for patriarchy, basically. She is professing an ideology that she clearly doesn't actually believe, because there she is. And I'm not summarizing Andrea Dworkin very well, but
We're always asking, what's wrong with us and what can we do about it? I think wokeness was deeply interested
but
in
wokeness was
questions about
anti-black
guilt.
was the thing I was going to say. Like, what they're talking about being anti-woke is just straight up, it is misogynist and racist. That's all it is. When Elon Musk talks about woke pilots or whatever the fuck, they just mean black pilots, or Charlie Kirk did the same thing. When they talk about wokeness and DEI ruining the workplace, they just mean women and people of color. Wokeness started as a term created by black people as an in-group term to mean like, hey, stay woke. That area has redlining. That area, they're dangerous. It's co-opted by a lot of liberals around 2012 or 2013, and then it becomes weaponized because that's what these groups do. Like, when I was growing up, it was PC culture. It was politically correct. And it was the same exact thing. It always just means I want to be racist and say that women are sex objects who should stay in the kitchen. But I can't say it like that. So let's just find a new fun word
but had kind of thin answers for how guilt can be expiated and where it's located. But I see this as less of a significant deviation from other parts of American history.
Let me ask you, though, about wokeness in particular. In the course of your own argument, you write, a society that cannot imagine placing the weak at its center, that forgets that society exists for the weak, will be drawn toward the Manichaean modes of cancel culture, right? So you're looking at the same phenomenon that Helen is looking at, and you're saying, well, there's not enough respect for dependence and weakness. Don't you think that wokeness...
That's her argument? That's very confusing. So she does think that our society ought to lift up the least among us as Christ our Lord directed us. But also, it's kind of cringe to rely on government assistance. I don't understand
whether
this.
It is a sort of feminized phenomenon or not is certainly, in its own self-conception, a mode of trying to get people to care about the weak.
I think this is where we couple that first, an orientation towards the weak, a preferential option towards the poor, with truth-seeking, right? They do go together. The weakness of a baby is pretty incontrovertible. The moral status of a baby is where people start to have a philosophical fight. I see a lot of the kind of frenzy of wokeness around people of a sense.
The moral status of a baby? What are you talking about? Yeah, Christina just referenced Stephen Letts and Little Enemies of God. Like, that's like a very religious framing of like, when should a child be baptized and consecrated in their dedication to the Almighty Lord?
Could it be true that in a meaningful sense, I'm complicit in systems of evil? This zeal for moral concern, that's good. Like the sense of how do I put things right in a situation where I'm constantly entangled with at least partial cooperation with evil? That's a good question. How do you put it right is not primarily through self-flagellation. It's through active doing good.
What about the
okay. So active doing good, such as ensuring equal pay for people of all genders. What about ensuring that there are not discrimination policies against the weak and dependent? Would that be doing good? Like, all they're annoyed about is that people would yell at them on social media and they would see shit that annoyed them. That's really all it is. Like, because they don't have real problems. They don't actually have issues. Like, you and I have issues. They're not worrying about how to pay rent. So the worst thing that can happen to them is that somebody makes them feel bad about their lot in life or the institutions that they serve. You know, somebody questioning their worldview, that's just about the worst thing that can happen to them, other than being called racist. Well, that's also pretty scary to somebody with no real fucking problems in the world. And so this is this is a very privileged conversation, in the sense that like fucking rich douchebags who are beneficiaries of all of these advancements in freedom. You know, if we didn't start including hobbits in the U.S. Constitution, then where would Ross Douthat be? No, I don't know.
Of wokeness that says, look, we are going to give special attention to people who are disadvantaged, who are sort of represent a tradition of suffering or disadvantage, who come from disadvantaged minorities or the disadvantaged sex or gender, as the case may be, right? And
like
essentially give them a special leg up, special deference in debate. And that's the place where Helen immediately says, you've lost truth seeking.
But it's not, and there's no way I'm going to be able to make it through a complete hour of this, folks. Just to be totally real with you, this is too infuriating. Or are we liking this? I don't know. But it's not about giving special deference to people. It's just, it's almost a trite point to make at this point, but to a privileged person at the top of a hierarchy, equality to them feels like oppression. They feel like, hey, I shouldn't have to be at the same level as these people. I'm better than them. And so to them, equality feels like oppression. And they're looking at it from this very cynical standpoint of like who they're competing with in the marketplace of opinion pieces in the bullshit neoliberal / conservative intelligentsia. Like, that's really their thing. Yeah. Equity. I wonder if they're going to talk about that.
And, maybe you've become too feminized. But what?
I wouldn't say deference in debate. I would say attentiveness to what.
By the way, they keep on saying feminized, and you recall that the first thing Helen did is refuse to define what that even means.
Which, went very badly, and one of which is going very well. The idea of we don't have enough students of color in our algebra classes at middle school. We've got this disparate impact. Let's get rid of the algebra class in California. That's not ultimately rooted in the sense of, okay, well, what are we doing and is it working? Versus the schools that overhauled.
Oh my God! But this is. Get me started on public education, systemic disadvantages of poor, impoverished kids. Their conception of what wokeness is, and DEI as a concept was invented by white people to better enact the Civil Rights Act. That's what it was invented by, because white people who disproportionately are empowered these institutions tried to create ways that would allow for more diversity without having to change the underlying problems in our society. So we're not going to actually do anything about police brutality, but we will allow more black people and women to join in on the brutality. We'll let them do that. It's that kind of thing. And so schools, the reason why schools have any issues at all is because the Republican Party has been waging war on public schools as an institution for 100 years, because their entire political project is dedicated to disenfranchising and disempowering public schools as an institution. And of course, they are going to target black and brown communities or poor white communities. It's going these cutbacks are going to impact impoverished communities who don't have a bunch of rich benefactors, and that's why they want more protections for their private religious charter schools so that they can just indoctrinate kids with this at the elementary school level. So fuck this. This is annoying, shitty stuff that I hate.
How they taught phonics and how they got run board, and they said, we'll tell it's working when the test scores improve, not when we hold a congratulatory press conference where we say we're getting rid of.
Why are we not questioning test scores as a measure of progress? Maybe it is the way that we monitor education. And by the way, why are test scores important in standardized tests? It's tied to funding. It's all just tied to funding. It's something that we have let capital take control of, something that should be considered to be a public good. I truly believe that education should be a human right, just like I believe that housing and medical care and food and water should be a human right. But these people, all three people here at this table, are aligned with a political project that explicitly wants to take away opportunities from poor children who have fought tooth and nail to ensure that kids get a shittier education, that teachers, their wages stay down. The kind of funding boost that they gave to ICE, these $50,000 signing bonuses, and we'll cancel all your student debts, that's something that Democrats tried to float for public school teachers. And of course, the New York Times Ross Douthat of the world were like, "Whoa, this simply can't be done. That's communism." But they do it for ICE agents because they really want to lock up black and brown people, and they want to do an authoritarianism. They want to do a fascism. So they have no moral beliefs. These are just fucking weasels. These are monstrous, evil people who believe in absolutely nothing and want to destroy the fucking world. Maybe.
Domain where there are tight feedback loops
maybe
about
they'll
whether you're
convince me in a
failing.
little bit.
It's normal to fail when you do things. And I think that's what's missing in a lot of domains of life. That if I were
they're
to
all
do one thing to say,
failing
how can I make the workforce feel more like the way Helen wants it to? It'd be less about adjusting the gender difference and more about people having more experiences starting in school where they do things they can fail at.
I don't have any problem with that. I think learning through failure is great. there's a lot of truth.
That's already how school is. Like, what she described is like, if wokeism was like this, then it would be good. No one would have any problems with it. And like Helen's saying, well, if the Me Too movement was just about holding rapists accountable, then no one would have a problem with it. And it's like, no, but that is what it's about. It's just that whenever humans do something, they're going to do it wrong sometimes because we're imperfect and we're trying to create a society here. That's what we're trying to do. And then there's some people who really just want to make a society that's all about them.
But so
that's
one of the dynamics
Ross
here, and
Douthat
one of the,
is
sort
for
of
they them.
obvious reactions to your essay
Trans people
is that
are for you.
there are still
and
plenty
us
of
and
men
me.
in positions of power all over the United States. But I think part of your argument is that men in those environments are effectively constrained.
I swear to God, this upset my parents more than finding out that like I had an apostate YouTube channel, like finding out that I voted. Which I am proud to say that the first vote I ever did cast was for Bernie Sanders, for whatever that's worth to people. But then, the second, because Bernie lost the primary, was for Joe Biden. But what are you going to do? I'm kind of like enjoying hating this. But do we want this or not? Sound off in comments. Should we move on or no?
Expectation that I think this
because I can subject myself
women are not allowed to
annoying
fail.
things for a long time.
So to start off with the empirical question of
For
whether
a
or not
change.
feminization is true, whether it is a fact about the world that we are living in a more feminized society. I understand people who say that,
If you're going to answer this empirical question, you need to describe what feminization is. And she won't do it because she concedes right up top that you can't really define certain qualities as being feminine or masculine because humans are capable of expressing them both.
Men still outnumber women among CEOs, and therefore that proves that we don't live in a feminized society. But I think that's just a failure to
there's a governing
understand
body
how linear
update.
time works.
There's
The fact that tenured professors are
there's
still
that
predominantly men
Carlson, Nick
because these
Fuentes
people got their
conversation.
PhDs back in the 1980s doesn't really tell you a whole lot if you're in a field where
We could check in with any number of right-wing chuds. I've been interested in watching some Asmongold because I've never watched his stuff. I've only ever seen clips and creators that I like talking about how shitty he is, but I don't know anything. I've never consumed raw Asmongold. I've never breathed in his cockroach-infested hoarder house.
as is the case in the profession of psychology. So it's correct that we have not yet had a female president. On the other hand, it's also true that the White House staff was 60% female under President
We could
Biden.
watch the
So
JW
does the one prove
Scientology
definitively that we
Jubilee
don't live in a feminized society, or does the
I just don't
other
really want to.
prove that we do? I don't know. I think these are all relevant facts. But sorry, Leah,
I think you're right that it's always the junior levels.
So she's like, so to answer your question, and then she didn't answer it, and she just asked a series of questions that deflected. These people they're doing a dance. That's what they're doing. They're just doing a little dance, and they're just saying intellectual-sounding jargon, but all they're saying at the end of the day is make it like Bible.
That are a lot more
It's
female
Bible.
tilted, and they're moving gradually up. So you expect that trend to continue. But then there's the question of a generation of boomers who have a real distrust of themselves.
I know.
Figures with something valuable to hand on.
I'm okay being mad. I don't want to be depressed.
And then
though.
you can see the sense of, well, let's be
Anger.
led
I
by
can
our junior
find.
staff. And
This is
I don't see that
this is
primarily as
sped up 1.25. I think. Yeah.
well, the men forgot, what it was to be men. I think the men forgot what they were doing or thought of themselves as having something valuable to pass
what
on.
are they
Men and women
talking
both
about?
live
The
with
men,
generation.
the
Where does that
women?
kind of vacuum of authority and culture fit into the story you're telling?
I would never want to pass up an opportunity to boomer bash. But I'm not sure that that's the story that's going on here. Certainly, there were many institutions and companies during the height of wokeness that felt like they were held hostage by their younger workers and their younger workers.
All they're fucking talking about is having to do a few more HR modules a year where you have to look at a little PowerPoint presentation about how to not say the N-word in the lunchroom. That's all they're really talking about. And they're like, this was really a spiritual tax put upon all Christians and all conservatives that we were forced to endure.
Were demanding wokeness, and the managers were too terrified.
Also,
to do
you might
anything
have
but
to pay.
capitulate. But I think
Terrified of what exactly?
If you are
what
illegally
an
paying
apt
them
question.
less.
When you look at somebody
All the
like
lighting.
James Damore, the
All the
Google
lighting.
guy who got fired for issuing
Or
a
is it
memo
kind of-
saying that
this is kind of
male
heavenly, actually.
overrepresentation in hard sciences might be attributable to biological differences and
Look at
differences in
this.
interest. He was not fired because Googlers were calling for his head and the management was
Googlers.
afraid of a staff revolt. He was fired because any woman alleging gender discrimination, any woman in his division could then sue the company and say, I have not been given opportunities.
Is she talking about that really like sexist thing that former Google employee wrote? Here, I'm going to do a poll. Oh yeah, this Helen person has called many a manager. Or is it not Helen? Is it Helena? I don't know. All right, I'm starting a poll for what our next adventure should be on YouTube. I don't know how to do that on Twitch yet.
Because the atmosphere at Google believes that women are less capable than men. It was because of legal liability. So that's where
no
I think
is safe
a lot of the indignation at the article I wrote puzzles me. But I think it's just because it comes from people who are not aware of the way the law is currently lopsided in favor of punishing male vices and allowing feminized vices totally free rein.
What are female?
What? At least asking the question that I want to know, which is like, what could you possibly be talking about? Like, other than perhaps watching the Real Housewives reality shows, but even then, I mean, I'm right there with Christina, enjoying every minute of it. Like, what is it? We don't have like gender specific rehab clinic. Well, probably you do, just to avoid sexual assault by men. But like drinking, drugs, sex, gambling, these are generally the broad categories of addiction and vices that I have seen across the gender spectrum.
And male vices.
So there was a landmark gender discrimination case in the 1990s.
Can she answer a
woman
question
who worked
normally?
at a shipyard. The workforce there was naturally 95% male. And she claimed in her lawsuit that she was not given the same opportunities as the men, that she was made to feel unwelcome. And one of the items of evidence in this lawsuit that she offered was that some of the male mechanics.
True conservatives, they wouldn't be on there talking. They'd have their husbands or somebody talking for them.
Oh, Christina says if they were real conservatives, if they really believed in Jesus Christ, they would have their husbands there and not them. And if they don't have husbands.
Head covering.
Yeah. Well, then what the hell's wrong with you? You should be at home taking care of babies that you should be having more of, by the way. Have more babies and take care of them more.
Had pinups on the walls of their work areas.
The vice is having a pinup calendar? That's not a vice. That's a decoration.
And that these half-clad women made her feel uncomfortable. She was successful. The court said, yes, that is a discriminatory aspect of the workplace. The boss needs to tell him to take those down. But that is not the only kind of masculine conduct that has fallen afoul of these kinds of lawsuits.
Can we say
really not just sexy calendars from the 1980s? Who has a paper calendar in this day and age? And that's how she started. Can we sit with that example for just a second? You know what? I'm glad that she jumped in there because I was worried. I was worried that the first woman was going to have to come up with an example not from 1990.
That example for just a second. I read the case.
Sure, I would be happy to. Please.
What you're glossing as a pinup was multiple photos of completely
That's
naked women
great-
in close-up. The woman had
great
sexist graffiti,
explanation. I'm
and
setting
one
this
of
comment
her
aside.
male coworkers thrust his leg in between her legs. I don't think, is there a little bit of rowdiness to men? Yes, but I think it's actually unfair to men to sweep that kind of pervasive nudity and specific sexist language and physical grabbing as just part of broad male vices that we need more space for in the workforce. And I don't think it's
what's happening here? I'm starting to agree with Cross Necklace.
fair to characterize it as she didn't like the pinups.
This is,
By the way, this could not be a more JW coded top that she's wearing. I hate to say it, but she would be right at home at the Tuesday night meeting.
Need more space for in the workforce. And I don't think it's fair to characterize it as she didn't like the pinups.
This is why I am establishing a spectrum of masculine behavior, and I am using that case as my anchor out at one end as the kind of behavior we can all agree, sure, okay, yes, by all means, that should be grounds for
By all
lawsuit.
means, don't sexually harass
Let
people.
me pose to you another case that I think you will find a lot more ambiguous. There have been several
meaning
gender
so.
discrimination lawsuits against Wall Street firms in the last 20 years, female traders
really
and analysts who say that the
get at
men
the heart of the issues
Morgan
here.
Stanley make more money than they do, that the most aggressive traders are given the best clients, and those tend to be men, and that is discrimination against women. Now, some of the women in these Wall Street cases can point to incidents that we would describe as sexual harassment, that some coworker
But
grabbed them
some
and kissed them
were
after a
floozies and
drunken work party.
hussies.
Okay, that's fine. But some of
Is
these
it
women
fine?
cited as their examples of testosterone-fueled behavior in the workplace, push-up contests. She said the other traders on my team had push-up contests, and this was discriminatory against me because that was a form of team building that I was not able to participate in. The real problem with these laws is that most masculine behavior falls into the gray area of not clearly illegal.
Okay, but that's not a problem, really, is it? That's not what anyone's talking about when they talk about discrimination in the workplace. I can't participate in the famous male bonding exercises of doing push-ups. Like, what are you talking about? Isn't the far more likely group bonding exercises doing cocaine in a bathroom? Like, isn't that what Wall Street people are supposed to be doing? Or blowing each other. Doing blow and then doing a blow. They call
But
it a
could be cited by
double
somebody if they
BJ.
filed a gender discrimination lawsuit.
The double blow job.
So I think managers
Double barrel.
take that information and they think, I can get in trouble for having a toxically masculine workplace. I'm not really ever going to get in trouble for having a toxically feminine workplace. So if there is ever...
So good.
Okay. But that's just because, like, I see what she's trying to do. Like, toxic masculinity, again, is not saying that all men are toxic. It's saying that, it's possible as a man to weaponize this masculine behavior in a bad way. But she is clearly just like, she really is so close to understanding that gender is a social construct. Like, she almost said that outright right at the beginning. And it's like, it's true. It would be hard to define what a feminine toxic workplace is, but maybe that's because toxic male workplace is an extension of a patriarchal hierarchy where their behavior will be dismissed or emboldened by their male superiors and male shareholders, stockholders, whatever. Like, maybe the kind of behavior that men are doing isn't wrong because they're men. It's just bad behavior. And if a woman did it, it would also be bad, but they don't have the institutional permission to do that kind of thing generally. But, like, by the way, like, yes, women can get in trouble for sexual harassment. Absolutely. It doesn't happen as often because, men feel more emboldened that they'll be able to get away with it, that they deserve it because they don't see women as people, as their equals. Like, that's the kind of culture that feminism fights against. And she's just like, no, feminism is just when you agree with what I think feminism is. And that's real feminism, and everyone else is just
Balance,
wrong.
I'm always going to err on this side.
So for
That's
both of you,
probably
Wow,
bad.
on the
what
side of the
is
vague thing that you didn't
what is
really
toxic
say.
femininity? If there are distinctive masculine vices, I think we can concede
Such as having
that there
calendars
are.
and sexually
There's a lot
assaulting
of talk
people.
about toxic masculinity. It's a regular subject of discussion. What are the
Sure,
feminine
Ross.
vices
Oh,
in that story?
gossiping, inability to deal with conflict.
Okay, immediately, bullshit, calling total bullshit on this. The existence of podcasting should prove beyond a shadow of a doubt that men are just as gossipy as women. What is the Joe Rogan podcast? If not just dudes gossiping and shooting the shit. Like, that's all. It's just human behavior. Humans are gossipy. Humans like to be in on a secret. We like to tell stories. We like to know what's going on. Okay, inability to deal with conflict directly. That's not a vice, by the way. She doesn't know what words mean a lot of the times. So far, she hasn't known what any of the important words mean. The most important words to her arguments, such as feminization, wokeness, and what was the word I just said? I already forgot.
And kind of suppressing
Vicing.
conflict
Vices.
and aversion to
Or vicing.
directness, which naturally in a workplace is a big problem.
Not a voice, just normative human
behavior. Give direct feedback to people, including negative feedback.
Vice.
To
her credit, I can't say any of these words, even though Vice is just
the equivalent,
one.
The fairness you have in mind, right, that you think is absent in how men and women are treated. Are you going to have a man
when men do it? It's just
for,
talking about the issues.
The hostile work environment, complaining that his female coworkers gossip too much or didn't argue with him enough?
Or that I was reprimanded for giving what I thought was really straightforward, clear feedback to somebody that she then reported me to HR and said I was being abusive. That happens all the time. All the time.
Yes, because humans are constantly bitching about each other all the time. It's not a men versus women thing. It's just, it's what people do. It's just what people do all the time. We're always saying, oh, can you believe what that person said? And then, and sometimes you're in the right and sometimes you're not. But also, the job of a manager is to not just automatically agree that some disagreement in the workplace is abusive and fire everyone. Like, in my experience, I'm not a manager, but as a working adult, it seems like it's actually quite difficult to fire someone. Like, there's a lot of worker protections. Double the environment, double the fun. I've worked in female heavy toxic work environments. None of the toxicity put me in danger. None of it prevented me from promotion or limited my pay. Yeah, I'm a medical assistant, predominantly women work in that field. And so for my entire working life, most of my coworkers were women. And I would say that yes, kind of workplace backbiting stuff is maybe a little bit more common, but it's kind of not really. I just think that behavior manifests differently in men because I would also, my dad was a firefighter. My dad was a firefighter. I would spend the night there, and it's the same kind of shit. It's just that it kind of manifests differently. Averse to directness, something that women are taught to do because otherwise they aren't feminine enough. Yes, this is some really incoherent, pearly things type of shit. Is this Pearl's mom?
And to be clear, I am advocating for fewer lawsuits, not more. I think probably the best equilibrium is, not every workplace is going to be a good fit for everybody. So why don't we have
the thing
some
that
workplaces that are more
everybody
masculine
already
affected
agrees
and some that
with?
are more
Amazing.
feminine, and we'll just not sue
I agree
each
with
other
normal
over
things.
It
Makes sense.
How about that for a deal?
I think some of what you're describing.
Why is she mad? These two women agree on basically everything. Why is she getting upset?
Not exclusively feminine. And it's strange to characterize it so strongly in that direction. It's
you're doing misogyny wrong.
Being bad at group dynamics in a variety of ways that men can fail at, women can fail at. And it happens in male-dominated places, too, where they're explicitly doing truth-seeking, because it's very hard as a discipline to value the truth more than your own pride. We say sometimes that pride can be, I think, a masculine vice as well.
Now consider the messenger.
And both men and women have trouble loving the truth more than they love their image of themselves as someone who already knew it.
God, that's so insightful and so sad that she will probably next say, and that's why trans people shouldn't get the same amount of rights as me. A Christian.
Is that the primary thing that you think is lost in institutions that undergo
cross girl
feminization?
Is actually
the failure to seek truth. In terms of the actual effects on society writ large, right?
Not losing my voice because
people
I'm
in the
very
break
moved
room,
by this
people dealing with HR, but all of society. You are saying that institutions that have this kind of conflict aversion are less likely to just get to the truth.
I think that's right. I think that's why the harms or perils of feminization have to be examined on a case-by-case basis for each institution and discipline. I think something like 80% of veterinary students are women today.
Are they doing a bad job at treating the
pets?
Are
you worried?
Yes. Okay. So now this is interesting. She's doing such a bad job at being a sophisticated anti-feminist that they're like, no, you're doing it wrong. What are you talking about? And this is a point that a lot of lefty liberals, whatever we're supposed to say, would point out. A lot of centrists like me who are just correct on everything. Oh, by the way, I remember my dad, him hemming and hawing about when women were first allowed to work at the firehouse, because that's happened in my lifetime. And you know what? It turned out to not be a big deal at all, and now it's just normal, and nobody really cares, except for maybe some weirdos who do, and so they just move to a different station. And there are some fields that are more male-dominated because it's just whatever, and there are some fields that are more female dominated because it's like whatever. I don't know. Like, do we need more male veterinarians? Or are we lacking a masculine touch in giving a vaccine to chihuahuas?
You predict they are, right?
See, as far as I know, this has not had catastrophic effects.
Unlike the black
well,
pilots.
Actually, Claudia Goldin, the Nobel Prize-winning economist, notes in her book that male veterinarians are more likely to own their own practices, whereas female veterinarians prefer not to because being an owner involves more financial risk and longer and less flexible hours. So the shift from a male-dominated profession to a female-dominated
What does this have to do with anything?
in veterinary medicine has led to corporatization. That we've gone from a world where most veterinarians...
Here's what this is. People with fucking fake problems worrying about the demographics of veterinarians.
That corporatization aside, the feminization of veterinary medicine has not led to the collapse of society and is unlikely to do so. I think it's basically fine.
What's the protective element there?
One of my favorite
what can
sentences.
Learn from veterinary medicine to take into white collar work, right? It just seems odd that you're describing this general dynamic that women you say would undermine completely the rule of law.
These things become self-fulfilling. Like, it's that way with... I think nursing is getting a little better about it, but, you know... and it's a reason why patriarchy's bad for men as well, because, like, you know, nurses, I have so much respect for nurses, just because I grew up with chronic health issues, so I just always had, I was always in doctor's offices and hospitals and stuff, and it was nice, you know, as a sick boy, sometimes to have a male nurse or whatever. But really, the reason why men didn't become nurses is just because it was culturally seen as being a women's job, and a real man would be a doctor. Haven't these guys seen Meet the Parents? But there's nothing, like, intrinsically feminine about being a nurse as opposed to being a doctor. It's like... But because some things become male-dominated or female-dominated, then that becomes a self-fulfilling thing. And it's probably the same with veterinarians. I don't know. I love that this is the conversation, though. You know, meanwhile, we can go back to at least the 80s or 90s that there has been a sustained effort to use a pedophile as an intelligence asset, and has allowed for these rapist, compromised guys to embed themselves in, like, every institution in our democracy and the media. And this is what they're worried about. Fake problems.
We'll lose the rule of law in our lifetimes when women become a majority.
That sounded conspiratorial,
if it's
but...
that...
as far as I know,
law,
that was all
I'd expect,
100%
if your
true.
claim is true, some erosion in veterinary medicine or pharmacy, which is also dominated by women and where you can track the failures because people die.
I would not expect to see a catastrophic effect from feminization in veterinary medicine. I don't know why
is that because...
why is that hard to see? Well, let me maybe reframe it.
You're
in a way
bad
that
at being this kind of person.
The people at this table. If there are more female historians,
they were trying to provide a nice little on-ramp to anti-feminism for their new right-wing reactionary subscribers who love all their anti-Zoran pro-Israel takes, and their increasing platforming of just dipshit rage baiters. But she's doing a bad job. She's making all the dumb arguments.
Than male historians. That will have some effects on what gets studied in history. You will have more...
And Angela Collier, who I've talked about, I mean, she's, like, super famous big YouTuber, doesn't need my endorsement, but, like, great video about sexism in the field of physics. And it's a great video, but, like, in the sciences, it is a bit of a boys' club, and because it's a boys' club and a culture of we're going to treat women like shit and be mean to them and make lewd passes at them and stuff, like, and we're not going to take them seriously because they're only a woman after all. Like, that atmosphere keeps women out of the fields. It's not about intellectual ability. It's because they create a culture that is hostile towards them, and then, you know, that is going to drive women out of the field. And what I think is annoying is they know this on some level. Like, I know that as women living in the United States of America, they have experienced this kind of thing, and they've just found these complicated ways to justify
feminist
it.
history and a lot less military history and economic history. Now, I'm willing to say that that's sort of fine, and then maybe the old male-dominated history profession did not enough social history. And we can all probably agree that the correct balance for the history profession is a little bit of each. That's kind of a neutral result of feminization. On the other hand, the fact that certain areas of inquiry are ruled out of bounds in history now or in psychology now because they are too controversial, that, which is what...
And now she's moving on to a totally different thing, which is like, because what she cannot say is, now, of course, that most of our historians are female, we see the consequence, because that's not a thing, and clearly wouldn't really be a problem, because if a historian is respectable and reputable, then they're just doing the work of being a historian, and their, gender wouldn't play into it any more than any other like normative human bias. And so now so she just moves on to wokeness, which she can just use interchangeably.
Wokeness seems like a genuine problem. That's not just feminization has caused some changes. Some of them are good and some of them are bad. We all need to learn how to live with the world being different now. That's a bad thing because it involves history or psychology.
Ross's face. I wish this is good. This is a good little screenshot, right? I'm going to actually take a screenshot of this because this seems like a better image for the thumbnail than what I had already. Very good. We did it. All right, I want to watch a little bit more of this before we move on to JW Broadcast.
Not doing what it is supposed to do, which is pursue the truth.
Don't you think, though, that there have been
it's just
a
that
lot
she
of
disagrees
moments and eras in history
with the conclusions
when institutions have failed catastrophically at the task of truth-seeking? And this is, just
like the
just in
fucking
terms
New
of
York
the
Times
overall
right
societal
now?
consequences, right? The stakes of this argument.
New York Times when Japanese internment camps were being implemented in the United States. Like the New York Times when Hitler was rising to power in Weimar, Germany, and they totally sanitized his reputation and said he wasn't really that hateful towards the Jews. Like, would that be an example of an institution failing? Would ignoring the most hideous, horrifying scandal in the history of American politics and sanitizing it and hiding the fact that your own reporters were involved, is that the degradation of an institution, by the way? I don't know.
Not just talking about,
hard to say,
sort of workplace dynamics, right? We're talking about academia failing to solve serious problems, journalists failing to report the whole truth about the world.
I'm definitely making an effort.
This is your critique of feminization.
As a
I think it is a reasonable critique of things that wokeness did.
As a man, as a son of a dad and the grandson of a grandfather. No, I'm trying to specifically read more women historians, and read more like Black authors, men and women, just because I don't know, I do feel like because a lot of what started making me wake up was like YouTube videos about this kind of shit, I did kind of come out of Jehovah's Witnesses with the thought that wow, I've just been really consuming this white American dude cult information my entire life. But I'm glad that Jenny brought that up because if you like to read stuff, try and read.
But you can find plenty of historical case studies
kinds of authors
where regimes, systems, forms of government did all the kinds of things that you're bemoaning under entirely male-dominated conditions.
Ross,
I am
what
baffled
are you
by people who
You're
think that a
smart.
litany of male failures is some kind of rebuttal. Not to say that you're making a bad point. I think you're making a very sensible point.
You can tell me I'm
completely
making a bad point.
mine.
It's not a litany of male failures. It's the kind of male failures. If the stakes here are feminized institutions don't adequately seek truth, but it seems to be that there are many situations where institutions fail to seek truth under male domination, why are we assuming that it is the female element in particular?
This is how you know that he is so full of shit, is that he is able to so clearly articulate the exact opposite of what he actually believes. That he's doing this because he wants a little bit of that power, and he knows that religious people are, unfortunately, a lot of times simpletons who will think that just because he uses big words that means the Bible must be really true. Because look at this smart guy saying all this stuff.
One counterexample of male failure and male failure to seek truth that gets thrown back at me a lot is the Red Scare. How can you say that women are the
However,
only
I
people who
hate
ever do witch
communism,
hunts?
and I thought
Think about
it was
McCarthyism.
awesome.
And without wanting to get too deep into the Joe McCarthy did nothing wrong rabbit hole, that is not the point that I'm making today. Let me make instead a different point, which is that I think that
Ross would
McCarthyism
like to
was
make another
actually in
time.
many ways quite masculine. Think about loyalty oaths.
What are you talking about?
Why
Instead of answering any of the normal
university systems
things,
and
I would
schools
like
and
to talk
other institutions
about
wanted to have
fucking Joe
loyalty
McCarthy.
oaths, which are sort of the banner phenomenon of McCarthyism.
And
because they said we
Trumpism.
simply
There are literally loyalty oaths right now that you have to take to join the government at any level. If you are getting a federal job, there are loyalty tests now. It's part of Project 2025.
cannot have an ongoing atmosphere of suspicion and rumor and sort of witch hunting. We need to have some clarity. So we will have
And so,
a loyalty oath.
by the
and
way,
everybody-
because there's loyalty oaths for the president, she must be feeling pretty comfortable because she's like, well, look at all the things I'm saying against wokeness and against the how toxic masculinity isn't even that big of a problem, and maybe toxic femininity is a bigger problem. I will be protected by this regime that believes women are sex objects from the age of 12 onward and should be discarded and replaced. You know, this is, I think, psychologically what's happening to her is that she views herself as being protected if she toes this line. Like, she has a lane towards being respected and being a part of these conversations in this room where it happens. But like, as soon as she is not useful to this movement, which I'm going to guess is directly after the recording of this podcast, you know, I don't know that we're going to be seeing too much of her. But in any case, there's going to come a time for all of these people, Ross Douthat included, where if they rub up against the administration, it's not going to fucking matter.
who takes it will be fine, and everybody who doesn't take it that'll be a problem. But
they won't be fine.
They won't
right.
be fine.
They won't.
But
They
at
won't
least
participate
then it
in
will
the
be
argument.
done.
Right.
Then it will be finished, and it will be all out in the open. And the criteria for deciding whether or not somebody is a communist will be known, and we will evaluate them in kind of a straightforward, objective way.
Because this
So
is a thing that
was,
we must
in some ways,
obviously
a male
examine.
witch hunt.
Right.
But it operated by masculine.
See my video on witch hunts. Something going on here.
Diversity statements, the same kind of thing. It's a loyalty oath about the aims of the institution. It's a masculine attempt to put an end to feminine gossiping in the universities.
Yeah, I think the thing that offends a lot of people about diversity statements, especially for new applicants to jobs, is that it's not a clear ticking the box. Are you gonna treat people
even if
fairly
you
or not?
do, the
It's
New York
show
Times
me
will write an
how much
article
you
about how
care
you checked the
diversity.
wrong one.
Prove to me that you are really on board with
But
this
so
wokeness.
by your defense of the
kind of
communist
it.
loyalty oaths, if it were less of a discursive essay and more of a signing a statement of principles, which some people could sign and you possibly could not, that would feel like more of a masculine policing of the bounds in which a rough and tumble of academia seeking truth within certain definitions could flourish. Is that right?
This makes me despise humans. This kind of shit. I don't know. This is making me like humanity less. This stupid conversation. But at least we can be
I think
angry
the
about it
existence
together.
of a woke university that wanted all of its faculty and prospective faculty to sign on to some kind of clear statement of principles, yeah, okay, and maybe it would be one that would be super DEI, and I couldn't sign it, but I would be okay with that. What I would not be okay with is people intruding DEI statements into, for example, the accreditation of law schools. And to be a valid law school in the United States, you have to teach everyone DEI as part of their legal ethics training.
Why? Why do you not like that? What does DEI mean? It means diversity, equity, inclusion. Why are you upset that you have to learn that a thing exists when you're in school? You know, like I had to take as some prerequisite, like a cultural diversity class, I think, at like Columbus State. I had to take cultural diversity. I think we may have had to do some class on religion. And I guess the point was to make us respect all the religions and the different cultures. And it was just a thing I had to do. And I don't like school, so I didn't like that class or really any classes I was ever in. But, like, is that bad? I learned about cultures. Is that such a bad thing? Like, they just feel like if you're taught this in school, that means you must believe it. Because they do want to indoctrinate people.
I think accreditation is about, are you a valid law school or a valid university? And so let's leave politics out of it altogether.
Right, but the temptation to not leave politics out of it altogether, again, it just seems to me
Willie Todd, what the fuck are you talking about?
It may manifest
Stop
in
being
some
weird.
different ways in environments where you have more women in leadership positions
You're in
versus more
time
men.
out for a little bit.
But there is still a similar impulse to police speech and debate. But I want to pose a question for Leah rather than just
McCarthyism was directionally correct, is what Helen says. Incredible.
Just arguing with Helen. So the truth-seeking question, right?
Let's
so you
ignore
think you
Helen
agree
for a
with Helen.
second.
Institutions should be truth-seeking.
Yes.
Right. Especially in medicine,
Really?
law, like the professions that have, I think, been most feminized in terms of the number of women entering into them. To what extent is truth-seeking in those professions or other places contingent on a certain degree of intensive competition within those institutions? And
Don't we need capitalism in all of our institutions? Should not all of our primary functions of a society be a competition between rich people?
can see the follow-up question, which is that the idea of care, dependency, I think you could say almost necessarily makes some institutions less
Willie taught like
hyper-competitive, right?
10 people?
The New York Times has incredibly generous, I'm not just saying this because my corporate overlords want me to, we have incredibly generous maternity and paternity leave. And when I confronted, after we had our most recent child, the incredibly generous paternity leave package, I was like, well, if I take all of this, I'm going to fail as an employee, right, in some way.
Because
I'm
you
going to
are
become
brainwashed by fucking capitalism to think that it would be a mistake. That failing as an employee is just as important, if not more important, than failing as a father. Like, that's fucked, dude.
It's competitive as a newspaper columnist among other newspaper columnists if I take this amount of time off. Are there professions that you look at and you're like, honestly, I don't think, I wouldn't want this profession to be required to have this amount of maternity leave because it would cut into its competitive edge.
It's not.
But do you see how they do this? Like, the idea that we should have fewer maternity and paternity leave protections in the United States is insane. I mean, compared to other developed democracies, what we have in the United States is a pittance. It is nothing. And I think it's a shameful thing. And I have a hard time understanding the logic for these religious types. Like, why, like, how do you square that with all of your biblical family bullshit? 10 people. Oh, because, like, I just looked at the number and it looked like 10 people less than the last time I had looked. All right. I want to hear their answer to this, and then I will move on to
competitiveness that I see as
JW,
the main
whatever.
hindrance. Here's where I would tell someone not to work if they want a family, which I think is doing good work, but
Sorry. The larger point I was making there is, like, they're doing this with the Epstein scandal too, with the age of consent thing. Like, this has been a talking point of manosphere types and Christian nationalists for a long time. You can see there's a really crazy clip of Piers Morgan saying this. I don't even remember what man he was talking about, but it was just like a dude, I think like a jacked celebrity dude, just had a baby. He was just holding his baby in like one of those baby carrier things on his chest. And Piers Morgan's like, this man has become cocked by his baby. It's feminizing. Oh, my God. And everyone was like, what the fuck is wrong with you? He's a good dad. He wants to be with his baby. But now, not only is that not taboo, we're like starting with the premise in this New York Times conversation that obviously we agree that there should be less maternity and paternity leave for some jobs because of capitalism and competition and so forth. But which jobs? Which jobs should people get fucked over more and be able to take care of their kids less? And I see that with the age of consent thing where, like, it used to be deeply shameful to be someone like Matt Walsh and these videos of him when he was a little bit younger and had less fucking jaw implants or whatever he had done to himself, talking in a car by himself about how girls are most fertile at the age of 14 or whatever. That stuff was so shameful and gross and cringe and fringe. Rhymes, so that was important. And now this is just like widely accepted shit. Like they're just making this and normalizing all these really creepy right-wing things. Like, that's what I see Megyn Kelly doing with what she was saying, is trying to normalize this stuff that these creeps have always been saying. Because on some level, I think a lot of the careerist types in the MAGA movement realize that all their fucking people that they've surrounded themselves with are enablers of this corruption. All right.
Method that isn't compatible with family life and isn't plausibly going to become compatible. It's SpaceX, which I admire a lot, which iterates very quickly, and for the whole beginning of its company had such.
That's enough of that. Anybody who admires SpaceX deserves to have no internet and only a library card for 3 months. That's your sentence for thinking that SpaceX is in any way something that you should be defending or care about. Unfortunately, you do have to have your internet privileges revoked for at least 3 months, at least as far as I'm concerned. Okay, so next, before we go, just because I'm having funsies, I do need to... Hey, Willie Todd, you're back, but don't be gross and weird to people, okay? We're all real people, so don't be a troll, because if you are, then I gotta ban you. And then I gotta deal with you emailing me and complaining that I'm silencing your free speech or whatever. Now, what's great about JW Broadcasting is we can play this thing as fast or as slow as we want. And 1x speed is, generally speaking, too slow for normal humans. But before we do that, and, well, this stream was about the Ross Douthat, New York Times, liberal feminism ruining the workplace thing. We were talking about why that was stupid and annoying. And now we're going to talk about my old group, Jehovah's Witnesses, because they just released a breaking news update, essentially. Breaking news governing body updates. These are the leaders telling us some important stuff. Probably not. Probably it's just a bunch of random bullshit. Whoa, what? The new questions from readers large posted. Oh, I thought they said Loesch for a second. I was like, since when does Garrett Loesch post his own questions from readers? No. Can somebody post that for me? Okay. Before we get into that, I do have to refill my water jar. And so let's enjoy another governing body member while we take a short break. We will be right back.
It's interesting. So, planet Earth. Perfect. No. Now, think about it. Maybe we've that puts to or persecute yourself. Very good. And verse 30. In verse 30.
Welcome back, everybody. I have a little friend with us today. It's our friend Peachy. Hello, baby. This is Peaches. She was just laying there in her bed, so cozy and docile. I just had to bring her on. And now Bo's jealous, of course. Why don't you come up here? He's just looking at Peach like, how do I get in those arms like that? She's the greatest dog in the world who brings so much joy to our lives just by her very existence. All right, cutie pie. I won't subject you to JW Broadcasting, okay? You don't deserve that. Keep your innocence and purity. All right. Well, of course, that's what she's named after. She's named after Princess Peach. So we do sometimes just call her Princess or Peaches. Oh my God! And another Peach, another dog named Peach is saying hi. This is the kind. It's my dog, Tur. And what I love about having Peach on the show is that we get to take a second and just appreciate our spiritual paradise full of many harmless animals.
Our spiritual paradise is a place that has many harmless animals.
Now, what do we mean by this?
I don't know, but we're going to watch whatever this governing body update is. When was this posted? Just a couple days ago. So this is hot off the press. Well, lukewarm off the press. And let's get a sense of Jeffrey Winder's deeply upsetting vibes.
Welcome. In this program, we'll
Pretty
share
good.
exciting highlights from the 2025 Service Year Report.
Oh, it's extra ominous when his
We'll also
eyes are
share
covered up
some
by the black
encouraging
bar.
experiences
Like
from
the
the
All
campaign
Rugby
we
logo.
had in September.
Okay.
But first, here are some updates. On October 24th through 26th, 2025, a special convention was held in Kobe, Japan.
I don't care about
Over
that.
3,000 delegates attended from 35 countries. The peak attendance was 22,591.
That's great. Okay.
Experience.
I don't
And
care.
always smiling.
Wait, I do want to hear the experience. So a common feature of JW broadcasting and the publications is you get to hear a little experience of somebody receiving a witness. Wait, it's not gross like you think. It means that a witness talked to them and made them think about how Jehovah's Witnesses are a good religion. And so let's see basically proof of God and proof that God's Spirit is at work and that he exists by listening to this at normal speed.
Related this experience.
Wait, where is this person from?
Strengthen our brotherhood. They also give
We
a
may have to-
powerful witness.
We have to close this out with a little edit I once made about our good friend Jeffrey Winter.
A delegate from Mauritius related this
Mauritius.
experience. A hotel chef asked, "What kind of group is this?" I explained we were Jehovah's Witnesses attending a special event.
I love, right off the bat, is that how the chef talked? What kind of group is this? And then the JW responds, we are Jehovah's Witnesses attending a special event.
He said, "Everyone wearing this badge is so refreshing, polite, and always smiling."
Wow, refreshing. He used like a JW buzzword, this chef? That's amazing.
Later, he brought a colleague and said, "These are the wonderful people I mentioned, well-dressed, courteous, and impressive." He said he might even
Courteous
attend
and
the convention
impressive?
on his day off.
Might.
Toward the end, he shared, "I've met foreign missionaries before, but you're completely different. You're truly refreshing, and I actually look forward to coming to work every day because of you."
Wow. Oh my God. For the first time in chef history, there was a nice customer at his restaurant. Several nice customers. Jehovah's Witnesses. He thought that there were no more nice people in the world. But this religion, which is told repeatedly to act exactly like that, to appeal to new members, they're different.
Pure worship glorifies Jehovah.
Only the pure kind, though.
While conventions bring joy,
Pure
some of our brothers have faced very different
Oh,
circumstances.
by the way, if you ever wonder how I make them say shit, it's just because they say worship all the time, and you can just very easily swap in them making a t sound. And you just snip that at the end.
Recently.
Little pro tip.
Natural disasters. And the Philippines faced multiple natural disasters in the span of 7 weeks. They had
It's a
5
polycrisis.
typhoons and 2 significant earthquakes. As a result, nearly 2,000 publishers were displaced and 99 homes were destroyed. And an additional 548 homes and 36 kingdom halls were damaged. 10 of our brothers and sisters were injured, but thankfully, none of our brothers and sisters were killed.
And they're not going to talk about anybody who was killed or any of the other people in the area because this is a group that only cares about the group. They don't care about other religions. They don't care about other people. If you're outside the group, then you should join, and then we would have talked about you.
12 disaster relief committees have been appointed to coordinate relief aid. In Jamaica, on October 28th, 2025, Hurricane...
What does it say about Jehovah, by the way, that he wants you to use your labor to build these kingdom halls that he will then later just destroy? Not on purpose, but he could have prevented it. You know, I mean, doing stuff with weather, that's one of God's most famous pastimes. So he could have made a spiritual protection around that. And sometimes when that happens, they imply that it was miraculous. But then when it doesn't happen and a kingdom hall or an assembly hall is destroyed, then they're like, well, that's just the way it is. And obviously God's not going to protect us. Now, he will in the end. He will during Armageddon. But now, sometimes we'll ask you to do a bunch of free labor, and then God will let the building be destroyed. And you're not really allowed to have any feelings about that.
Melissa struck as a Category 5 storm, with
Very
winds
refreshing.
of nearly 300 kilometers or 185 miles per hour. This was one of the strongest hurricanes ever recorded in the Atlantic Ocean. Deadly floods and landslides also hit Jamaica's southern coast. Hurricane Melissa also affected parts of Haiti.
This is how it always feels like Armageddon could be coming soon, because there are always natural disasters, and every new one feels like, oh, see, the Bible said something about natural disasters and storms. And, you know, climate change is causing more severe, unstable, like, storms and weather events. And so there are going to be unprecedented, like, storms and things. I cannot think of another word for storm. Hurricane. That one's on the screen.
The Dominican Republic, Cuba, the Bahamas, the Turks and Caicos Islands, and Bermuda. How were our brothers affected? Thankfully,
we need brothers.
None of our brothers or sisters were killed, but 14 were injured.
Jesus.
A combined total of 679 were displaced, 79 homes were destroyed,
oh, God,
and 1,165 additional homes were damaged.
Hurricanes and tsunamis, those are actually my greatest fear in the world. Like, that and centipedes, or just all bugs, for the most part. But, like, I would live just about anywhere, but I could not live in a coastal town for that reason. I've been like that since I was a kid. Even the tornadoes we get in Ohio sometimes is a little too scary for me, and that's like the least scary act of God that you can endure in some ways. So I don't know. The images of hurricanes, probably just sick seeing Hurricane Katrina stuff at a young age.
4 kingdom halls
That was
were
just
destroyed.
on the news all the time.
40 kingdom halls and 5 assembly halls were also damaged. 4 disaster relief committees are providing help. When disasters like these occur, we're deeply concerned about our brothers and sisters.
And no one else.
It's just as the Apostle Paul said at 1 Corinthians 12, 25, and 26. So that there should be no division in the body, but its members should have mutual concern for one another. If one member suffers, all the other members suffer with it. According to the study...
Unless their suffering is caused by the organization, and then they just got to take it on the chin and shut up about it. Oh, good. And now they're going to source... They're going to cite as a source the thing that they wrote. Like, for all we know, Jeffrey Winder himself wrote this shit. All right, this is very boring indeed. Okay. If you're a Jehovah's Witness, sorry if that felt overly dismissive. That probably didn't convince you. But also, there's no way you would have watched this far in a stream. Okay, I am kind of interested to see how they spin this, and I'm always interested in this guy's face. I think Jeffrey Winder seems the least human of all the new guys. But their preaching has been pretty ineffective. Their numbers have been plateauing and declining for a long time. And even as a Jehovah's Witness, when I was in, I felt a sense that the preaching work was becoming less and less effective, that fewer and fewer people were interested, and the special campaigns seem to make absolutely no difference because all you're doing is like specifically trying to place one publication instead of maybe multiple. So let's see how they spin this.
We're so encouraged to see your zeal for the ministry.
Oh, he is sped up right now.
That zeal was evident in our recent worldwide preaching campaign.
Okay.
In September 2025, we had the joy of sharing in the global distribution of the Watchtower entitled An End to War. How?
Global distribution.
We also invited interested ones to the special talk.
That's what I'm talking about.
Here are a couple of encouraging experiences from the campaign.
Encouraging and refreshing experiences.
Made a special effort to share in public witnessing during her lunch break.
The first experience that we heard was that a chef was impressed by how nice the witnesses were, brought out his friend to meet them, a thing that you never do sarcastically. Like, hey, is it Jehovah's Witnesses I've been talking about here? Let's come out and meet him. That's not it. There's no way that could have been the answer. Let's take it on face level that they were, face value, that the chef was every bit as moved by the nice name badge wearing patrons of his restaurant as the organization says he was. His commitment was to maybe go to the convention or in a Kingdom Hall on his day off. So that was the miraculous thing. That was the best one they could find. Out of every experience that they heard around the world, the best one that they could read on the broadcast was that a chef almost committed to maybe coming to one meeting if he can make the time.
She knew her employer was a former Bible student, so she told her about the global campaign. She also encouraged her to consider resuming her Bible study. Later, the sister learned that 2 co-workers overheard the conversation and had many questions. As a result, both co-workers accepted a Bible study. The next day, the sister's employer agreed to resume her study. Now, all 3 are studying, and 2 attended the special talk.
Damn.
In Belgium,
Okay,
a
now
woman
that's
kindly
a real
greeted 2 sisters who
experience.
knocked on her door. When the sister showed her the featured issue of the Watchtower, she readily accepted it. On a subsequent visit, the woman...
This, I don't know about you, but when I was a witness and there was somebody who was really eager to take the publication, that made me suspicious of them. Like, wait, what's... They should have more follow-up questions. Usually people will ask some follow-up questions before they let me give them a Watchtower. And if they're, like, really excited and do want you to come back, you're like, well, hang on. You should make sure we're not a cult or something.
Told our sisters that she had also visited our website. She had watched the video, Why Does God Allow Suffering? She said that she appreciated the logical, reassuring answers to her questions.
Reassuring is, I would say, the key word in that sentence. Not so much logical. The answers are reassuring. Don't worry. You'll get to see your dead loved ones again, and it will happen soon, and you will never die, probably, because the end is coming so soon. And that is reassuring. Maybe not logical.
The sisters offered her a Bible study, which she gladly accepted. While attending the special talk, the woman listened attentively. After the program, the woman said that she longs to be around people who genuinely want to serve God.
I long
she continues
for it.
to enjoy a regular
I
Bible
long
study.
for fellow
These
servants of
experiences
Christ.
are just a tiny glimpse of what happened during the special campaign.
We can imagine all of the other chefs and sous chefs who may have been similarly moved, and all of the other suckers.
But now, let's look at the report of our preaching activities for the 2025 service year. The 2025 year text encouraged us to give Jehovah the glory due his name.
I hate this. And it's why, for the last Awkward Silence supercut of the annual meeting, I had many examples of him saying do, because he said do a lot. Give Jehovah the glory due his name. I don't like it. I think it sounds sweaty as a sentence. And I think anytime you're just saying the word do, it reminds me of poop. So I don't like this. The year text is one of the weirdest things you do as a Jehovah's Witness. It's just like every year at the front of the Kingdom Hall, and not all Kingdom Halls even have the text on the actual wall. They might just have it on a screen, but it's just like, this is kind of our slogan for this year, is this scripture. And so they will put it like on the walls at the front of the Kingdom Hall or on the screens. And you're just kind of supposed to think about that more than you would have otherwise. You're obviously supposed to be reading the Bible every day and thinking about all of God's promises to the extent possible. But this year, this one's really going to define this year. Give Jehovah the glory due his name. It's like, his name is Jehovah, so you got to give it up to him.
Well, Jehovah's people all over the world.
How about you give Jake the glory due my name? Do my name. The glory due my name.
Did just that. We rejoiced to see an average of 9,047,083 publishers. That represents a 2.5% increase.
Non-Bornians are always kind of scary
out
when
of
I
the
was a PB.
241 lands where we preach the good news,
really?
96 reported
I wouldn't have been
all-time
convinced
peaks
by
in the number of
that
publishers.
talk. You liked that?
In addition to the worldwide campaign to offer Bible studies in September 2024, various branches hosted local preaching campaigns during the service year. The emphasis on starting conversations and offering Bible studies clearly has Jehovah's blessing.
Clearly. Now, a lot of times something not clearly having Jehovah's blessing is also a sign of Jehovah's blessing. So you got to be careful
For example,
with the signs.
from June to August 2025, our brothers and sisters in Peru shared in a preaching campaign. What was the objective? To reach community.
Okay, look at this doggy. This dog trying to live his or her life. And they're like, look how hard we try. We even go to people who have to sit on the ground and wear funny hats. It's just very, like, the perspective of it and the way that they just tokenize people from other cultures and reduce them to costumes, being like, here's how much we preached. We did some shit in Peru. When's the last time you thought about that place?
In 5 diverse regions of the country. These range from the Amazon River to high in the Andes Mountains. What was the response?
Andes Mountains.
During the campaign, nearly 10,000 people expressed interest in our Bible study course and asked to learn more about it. Similarly, from July to August 2025, thousands of our brothers and sisters shared in the first ever preaching campaign in Zambia's.
That's enough out of this. This is the most boring shit I've ever heard. Is there really... Is this actually it? Wow. Why do this even? Okay, I do want to see their little propaganda video.
In the 2025 service year report.
As opposed
in
to
the Philippines, we had a new peak averaging over 268,200
And I want to see it slow. I want to see it the slow way.
Publishers. And recently, for the 37th month in a row, we reached a new peak in regular pioneers.
It says normal
now
right
totaling
there.
over 79,000.
And now I'm thinking, oh, every time they say numbers, I can do fun stuff with numbers.
That's on average 531 new pioneers each month.
In the country of Mexico, we reached a new peak.
The country of Mexico.
879,024 publishers. And we
That's
also
so
had a new
not
peak of regular
a lot.
pioneers.
In all
More
of
than
Mexico, they had less than a
173,000.
million. What? I couldn't have understood that right. In the country of Mexico, we reached a new
peak of 879,024 publishers.
What? What's the population of Mexico? That seems so low. And it is. There's 130 odd people in Mexico, and there's less than 1 million Jehovah's Witnesses. Wow. Oh, in the dumb edits I like to make, I could make it seem like, hey, isn't it funny that they said a big number instead of a small number? It's the kind of highbrow stuff we do on this channel. That's so small. And I'm not saying that to be like, you suck. I'm saying that, like, doesn't that figure kind of undercut the argument of the group? Because, I don't know. I'm trying to say it in a way that doesn't sound mean. But, like, why isn't God blessing your work more? Like, that's not a figure that I think you should be bragging about. That's actually a very small number relative to the amount of people who live there.
And we also had a new peak of regular pioneers, more than 173,000.
It does give you an appreciation.
We had a peak in the number.
It gives you an appreciation for how small the group is, because, like, for us as ex-Jehovah's Witnesses, it's very frustrating that the group doesn't get the kind of publicity that other cult and high control groups get, especially because they are so big, like, compared to smaller niche groups that have some, I don't know, compelling angle that could be used in a HBO or Netflix documentary or something. But when you think about it, like, there really are just so few Jehovah's Witnesses. And I think specifically because they don't vote or try and engage in electoral politics or you really do anything except engage in the court system, and it just makes them so easy to ignore.
32,371.
This guy's got an interesting vibe.
That represents a 3% increase over last year. We also recently
Satan's religion
reached an all-time peak in the number of regular pioneers, over 7,100.
In Angola, we had a 6% increase in the number of publishers. That brought us to over 184,000.
Not a lot, but you got to admit that he's got some old-ass books behind him. And so he's got to be pretty smart. And it has to be a somewhat legitimate religion, because look at how falling apart these gigantic tomes from the fucking late 1800s are. Oh my God, those are so... And it's just all different versions of the Bible.
Which is a new peak. But since then, we've already reached a new all-time peak of 190,939 publishers in September.
In Zimbabwe, we were pleased to see a peak in the
It
number.
is still weird for me to see Jehovah's Witnesses with beards. It's just a different aesthetic.
Publishers over 53,700.
It's just guys saying numbers. Just guys saying numbers.
In addition, we recently reached an all-time peak in the number of regular.
This guy is actually terrifying to me. And it's not him. It's the fact that he's doing JW voice. He knows that he's on a JW broadcast, so he's got to do the JW accent, which is sounding like a scary Stepford robot. But I want you to really look at his face and think about what might be happening here.
3,700.
You know, is that a person?
That's an increase of 7%.
I don't know. The group has robbed this man of his
In addition,
humanity.
we recently reached an all-time peak in the number of regular pioneers, over 10,600.
In Congo-Kinshasa, we had an 11%.
Would it be better or worse if they just kept their hands at their sides the whole time? That would just also be weird.
We also had all-time peaks in the number of Bible studies and in memorial attendance. In fact, over 1.4 million people attended the memorial. That is over 4 times the number of publishers. In the country of France, we are...
Why are we saying the country of France? You can just say France. People know about France and Mexico. You know what I'm saying? You don't have to be like, we're not a continent, okay?
Happy to report a new peak in the number of publishers. 139,500.
Just just
in
like
Madagascar, we had
an
7%
animation
increase in the number
model
of
rig.
publishers.
Just
That brings us to a new
Or
peak
Jesus.
of over 44,500. We had nearly 4 times that many attend the memorial, with an all-time peak of 176,453.
This sucks. I mean, this is absolutely hypnotic, and clearly that is absolutely the entire thing. Oh, awful. I'm actually sorry that we watched that. I'm deeply sorry that that's what I subjected you to. I mean, there has to be something more fun. The circulatory system of the giraffe. That sounds like I would actually have to learn about how giraffes really work. Let's look at happy are those who have not seen and yet believe. This is new enough that I'm almost certain I haven't talked about it. Check out the new light. Oh, there's new light. What do we... Okay, right. There's like on Reddit, perhaps, like on the XJW subreddit. And this was, it's Larchwood, right? Is that the situation? Oh my god. Reddit is going to recommend a lot of inappropriate subreddits before it brings you Larchwood, just for every letter that you keep typing. Hey, a foregleam of new light. Okay. Damn. So this is a leak from Larchwood. Very credible source. One of our best whistleblowers. All right. Okay. So now we got some juice. We got some real juice. That sucked. I'm actually upset about that governing body update, making me listen to numbers on purpose for an extended period of time. All right. New light on 1 Thessalonians 5:3. New light, if you don't know, is the group saying, like, we're going to announce a new scriptural understanding of everything. Like, God has revealed that this verse in the Bible means this. And this actually seems really huge. The nations proclaiming peace and security, and this is according to an upcoming February 2026 Watchtower. The nations proclaiming peace and security may come after Babylon the Great is destroyed, not before, maybe. We do not know. They're hedging their bets. Oh, I hate when they do that. Take a stand, you cowards. If everything is, we don't know, then why believe any of this? All right, questions from readers. When will the nations proclaim peace and security? That was my JW voice. As we considered in the questions from readers published in a recent issue of the Watchtower, a Jehovah... what? Jehovah will soon put into the hearts of the 10 horns, all the political powers, his thought, namely that they give their power and authority to the scarlet-colored beast, the United Nations. This beast is also called the image of the wild beast, Then the 10 horns and the newly empowered wild beast will remove false religion worldwide. So this is a kind of 5D conspiratorial religious hokum pokum. Oh, yeah. Let's zoom in on the text here. Yoink, yoink, yoink. Is that slightly better? Oh, I think we can make this go away. Hey. Now we're getting somewhere. So, yeah, I made a whole main channel video about this, about their teaching that's been changing recently, about the wild beasts, and when they proclaim this cry and peace of security, the cry of peace and security will happen. My point is that it doesn't really matter, obviously, but I still find it very fascinating. Okay. Will the nations proclaim peace and security before or after Jehovah implants his thought in their hearts? 1 Thessalonians 5:3. Put simply, we do not know for sure the timing of the future proclamation of peace and security. If we knew all the details, we would not need to stay alert and watchful, yet Jesus repeatedly counseled his followers to keep on the watch. So this is just what Jeffrey Jackson said, right? We don't know, and we don't need to know. Let us now take a close look at the inspired prophecy that the Apostle Paul wrote to the Thessalonians. Paul wrote, whenever it is that they are saying peace and security, then sudden destruction is to be instantly on them. Now, okay. The thing with this verse is that most religions that aren't conspiracist cults just say, well, it just means that generally when people are feeling comfortable and saying, oh, there's peace and security, nothing to worry about, generally, then sudden destruction will be instantly upon them. Like in an ironic twist. But they seem to say that there is going to be like an official proclamation or a series of official proclamations that will signal to Jehovah's Witnesses that, ooh, this thing from the Bible is happening. However, after further careful consideration, it seems that there is another possible explanation that we cannot rule out. Wow. Maybe. Could be. Seems. Perhaps the proclamation of peace and security will be made after the destruction of false religion. Why might this be the case? Consider the following questions. What has been false religion's role in the wars of the nations? The Bible explains, in her, the great prostitute, Babylon the Great, was found the blood of all those who have been slaughtered on the earth. Throughout history, the great prostitute has promoted wars in the nations and often fueled acts of terrorism. Okay, so this is the same shit. So she has been a force for war and aggression, not peace and security. That raises the question, will the nations proclaim peace and security only after they have removed Babylon the Great? That is possible, but we cannot be certain. What will follow the proclamation of peace and security? Paul says, then sudden destruction is to be instantly upon them. Ugh. The study note on this verse says, so a thing that Watchtower themselves have added to the margins of their translation of the Bible. This is what they are citing as a source. Paul here indicates that there will be little or no time between the proclamation of peace and security. Yes, the indication is the word instantly. And the destruction that will come upon those making that cry. It will be sudden and inescapable. If the world's political powers proclaim peace and security after false religion has been removed, then the destruction of all those nations would follow with striking suddenness. How will Jehovah's people react to the foretold events? Paul says, brothers, you are not in darkness so that the day should overtake. Okay. This does not make any sense. I have to read this because I can't make sense of what the fuck they're saying here. Consider. The proclamation of peace and security is made after the destruction of false religion. Then Jehovah's people will know that the destruction of the nations is imminent. However, from the point of view of the nations, their destruction will come as a thief, suddenly without warning. What then may we expect? I'll just say, these are criticisms that I have brought up on the channel, and I generally think, like, if something has occurred to me, it's probably occurred to a lot of Jehovah's Witnesses, especially people who work in Bethel and are thinking about this stuff as their full-time job, right? So I'm not saying like, oh, they've been watching my channel. I'm saying like, this is an obvious problem with their beliefs, that the idea that God is going to magically implant in the hearts of the nations, the United Nations specifically, that they should ban all religion worldwide is really crazy. And aren't there going to be a lot of militant people of other religions who refuse to comply with the United Nations? Like, what? It doesn't make sense. But now it's like they're addressing this by bringing in a crazy news scenario where maybe like the worst nightmare of New World Order conspiracy theorists come true and secular atheists take over the world and destroy religion. I don't think that's a thing that can possibly happen, by the way. Religion is such a malleable concept. Like, even if you were like, okay, Catholicism is now illegal, what would Catholics do? They would just be like, okay, now we're the four bulls and we worship the Borbal. And they would just do the same thing, but they would find ways around the law, like all religious lawbreakers do. Like, you can't suppress human imagination, and that's what religion is. You know, it is a search for meaning and a search for a group identity. You can't actually legislate that. It's why tyranny doesn't work, which is why Jehovah's Witnesses doesn't work. But okay. In the near future, the great horns and the greatly empowered wild beast will destroy false religion. This will be the start of the Great Tribulation. And that, there's no ifs, ands, or buts. That, they're on the record with that. We also know that at some point, the nations will proclaim peace and security. When will that happen? We have discussed two possibilities. Possibility one, that proclamation will be made close to the time, either just before or just after, when Jehovah puts his thought into the nation's hearts to give their power and authority to the wild beast. Possibility two, the proclamation will come after the political elements have completely destroyed Babylon the Great. We will have to wait and see what happens. Bible prophecies are often fully understood when they are being fulfilled or after they have been fulfilled. Isn't that fucking convenient? Oh, hey, in hindsight, that prophecy did happen, and we're just going to say that it did come true. Boom, see? Proof the prophecy is real because of that thing that you weren't paying attention to. Fucking stupid, doesn't make any sense. Completely destroys the point of prophecy. In the meantime, what matters most is not the timing of the future proclamation of peace and security, but our standing before God. We must stay awake and keep our senses so that we may be fully prepared no matter how events unfold. So, like, this is so evil to do this. Like, obviously the only reason why you would be a Jehovah's Witness as opposed to another religion is that you believe that it is the only way to survive Armageddon because they have the truth. And now they're basically saying that, you know, all the specific doctrines that convinced you it was the truth, that doesn't really matter, and we're just going to change all that shit when we see fit, based on whoever's in charge, when you guys come in with their ideas of what these verses mean. And the important thing for you, even though Armageddon is coming anyway, any day, is you just have to be compliant and go along and do whatever we tell you to do. If you're just a compliant slave to these old white bastards who live off of your money and labor, then you'll survive Armageddon, which is definitely coming, but maybe not for a long fucking time. This is really bananas. I mean, this is really stupid. So the new scenario is that Babylon the Great, my understanding is that Babylon the Great is all false religions in the world embodied in this image. And God will destroy all the false religions in Armageddon, right? Because in Armageddon, in the Great War of Armageddon, there will be only one religion left standing, and that is Jehovah's Witnesses. But before that, Satan's system of things is also going to attempt to do exactly what God's going to try to do. False secular institutions, they will become so secular that they will completely abolish all religions. They will state their intent to do this, and it will happen, and there will be such widespread agreement that it worked that they will proclaim from their new globalist headquarters that peace and security has been accomplished. What? Well, that's even more confusing. False religion gets destroyed by the system, and then God will destroy the system in Armageddon. No, that is what I'm saying. Like, this is confusing. It's saying that Satan's system of things will actually succeed in getting rid of false religion, which is weird because that's also what God wants to do. So then when the institutions of Satan's world succeed in destroying false religion, then God will come in and say, ha, tricked you, idiot. Now I'm just going to actually kill you all. I think, right? The Great Tribulation. Well, maybe I'm saying the wrong words. I think I recapped it correctly. But now they think that peace and security could be announced after Babylon is destroyed. Right. They sure love never explaining how any of this will happen, just that it will somehow happen eventually. That's the thing. And I think the sadistic genius of it is that it's so specific and yet vague on the details of how, that you can look at the turmoil of the world and in your head kind of like fill in the gaps of like, yeah, I can imagine that kind of thing happening. We've got all these little specific, it's kind of like how you do world building in fiction. Like, okay, there's a hatch, and we know there's something called the Dharma Initiative on this island, and there's a monster, and all of that is going to relate together somehow. But, I know that Lost is fiction. And they're like, this is so real that I'm going to dedicate my entire life to it. We can't be too sure. But it's just like, why are we not expanding the "we don't know" mantra to be like, well, we don't actually know if 144,000's a real number or a figurative number. We don't really know if Jehovah would approve or not approve of blood transfusions because that technology didn't exist. And there are substantial differences between drinking a vial of blood down your throat and getting a medically necessary blood transfusion through an IV to save your life. So that's going to be a matter of conscience. We can't know for sure if Jehovah really does view gay people as second-class citizens. We don't know that. Like, why not just, we don't know anything. Why do they know for sure that Acts 15 definitively and for sure establishes the governing body because of one time when some old guys in the Bible got together to talk about cutting part of their dick off? Like, they're really fucking this up. I think they're really fucking all this up. It's like they watched my video that was like PR advice for them, and they're like, bet, okay, I know what we're gonna do. And then they did address all of the things, but in the worst, dumbest way possible. Well, that was basically a birth defect known as sin. Sin caused something to happen to Adam and Eve at a genetic level. When they ate that apple, their DNA changed, and an immutable trait that was passed on to Adam's progeny through his semen, which also contained all of the races in the world, also contained this gene that was called sin. And that can just cause your body to do all kinds of crazy stuff. That, you wouldn't be gay if, well, this is because after the rebellion in the Garden of Eden, God decided to let Satan rule the world for a while, and that's why he doesn't intervene in human affairs. He will later as retribution, but he is purposefully on the sidelines, letting humans and Satan drive themselves into destruction so that it is clear that his rule is the best. I mean, their theology doesn't make any sense. It's dumb, but that would be their reasoning for it. Like, he is all-powerful, and he is perfect, and that's why it is a perfect decision that he did what I just said. Okay? You can't understand why that makes sense, but it does. And it is, in fact, that thing, that contradiction at the heart of the Garden of Eden and the theology that made me really start to question, because I had to give a talk on that, public talk as a witness, and I would try and find ways to teach it to the audience, to like come up with some way to explain it in a way that made sense, but I just never could, because it didn't really make sense to me. That a good way of saying it. God made the process, and it's our job to figure out how these processes, but not read too much into it, yes. But then he's going to cheat anyway and make the nations do all the things prophesied anyway. Yeah, exactly. So, like, all of this stuff is just going to happen because of humans' own choices, because free will does exist, but also then God's just going to make them do this thing. And the thing that God's going to make them do, and this part is where it gets confusing, is Jehovah is going to make the nations try and kill Jehovah's Witnesses. It's very weird that of all the things that God could put into the hearts of man, that he would put it into his heart to kill his people. That's kind of weird. But he is going to do that. And then those same people who are following the woke mind virus that God gave them are going to be destroyed for doing the thing that God made them do. Does that make sense to everybody? That's the theology. If you got a problem with that, it's because you're just prideful and you think you know better than Jeffrey H. Winder. I don't know if that's actually his middle initial. Jehovah is a capitalist. He works a lot like a business, which is why he has a board of directors, just like he did in the first century with the Penis Committee. And we all remember that. If God is this volatile, doesn't it seem like going to heaven when you die might be very scary? I know. Well, and like when you look at the depictions of heaven in JW publications, it is really scary and weird and disorienting, which is why you want to live on the earth. Being 144,000, being part of that select few, I always thought it'd be really freaky. I never wanted to go to heaven I didn't want to go to witness heaven. That's okay. And this is also the reason why witnesses who proclaim to be of the anointed, who are like, you know what, I think I do have the heavenly calling. All witnesses kind of look at them as a little crazy, because everyone's like, but why would you want to go to the weird, confusing heaven shown in the Revelation book when you could live on the nice paradise earth shown in the Revelation book? Well, that's interesting. That is different than what Jeffrey Jackson said. I'll say that. Like, it starts off just exactly the same, but then this new scenario that they introduce is pretty crazy. I find it really bizarre that they will just totally say, well, we don't know, and we can't know, and guys, we're not perfect when it comes to some things. But the base idea that the United Nations is involved, that we know that for sure. That's a fact, that the United Nations, an institution that, I think there probably will be something like the United Nations always, because there will be attempts to, create peace and unity or whatever the fuck. But, it used to be called the League of Nations. I can see a world where the United Nations is shuffled again. I don't know. Very weird. Very weird. Thank you for enjoying listening. And thank you to everybody who did listen. I think, by the way, I'll just play this clip from J.D. Vance. This is before we go. I have more things to say.
My friends, instead, my friends, we all know it, and my friends.
Sorry, I just needed to take a drink of water. And that was just the easiest thing to click on. I get you. Okay, from Sassy Salsa, who's been dropping lots of good tidbits in chat. We love a tidbit. We love a sassy tidbit. Says Peter Thiel is trying to sell the idea that people seeking world peace are actually the Antichrist. Yeah, I mean, that's why I found Peter Thiel's theology so fascinating. I did a stream a few weeks ago, or it's probably a couple months ago at this point, where we read through this report that was Wired that did it, going deep into what his theology is, and a lot of it's based on this Nazi theoretician Carl Schmitt, but it's actually very similar to Jehovah's Witnesses in a lot of ways, and this is a key part of it. Like, two witnesses, they still, to this day, will brag that they did not take part in the civil rights movement. They did not take part in any number of completely just, righteous causes that Jehovah's Witnesses benefit from, because the nations aren't doing it the right way. The right way to do it is through Jehovah's Witnesses, you sillies. And so they believe that the United Nations and, their criticism of the United Nations is not the leftist progressive critique of the United Nations and like imperialism and stuff. That's not what it is. It is that thing. It is that they are offended by mankind trying to rule themselves without God. They want a theocracy, and that's kind of Peter Thiel's argument too, is that no, it is the idea of all the nations coming together that's the Antichrist, because that's a trick. The thing that's not a trick is me and all my surveillance systems that can scan your face from satellites without you ever knowing it, and then we show up at your door because you posted a meme that we don't like. That's not a sneaky trick. It's people who try and create unity across the world. And Greta Thunberg and all of her attempts to combat climate change and oligarchy and the Israeli government, but it is, you can see why it scares them, because I think they have this perspective because they don't like the idea that they're wrong. Like, if Greta Thunberg is right, because this is what Peter Thiel says. He just calls it the Greta argument, because this is how much, like, he is a Saturday morning cartoon villain. He is obsessed. He has infinite money and resources and gadgets galore, but he is most terrified of kids with ideals and who actually believe in something. And it's because if they're right, then that means Peter Thiel is actually full of shit and doesn't need to be in charge. And all of his self-conscious, like, self-hatred and all of his justifications for all the harm he's causing actually were bullshit the whole time. And he does deserve to go to fucking jail for his crimes against humanity and for being a pedophile, as we now know, pretty conclusively, that he is in the Epstein files even more than we already knew we did. I don't know. It gets confusing there. But anyway, yeah. But I find that motivating in a way. They're so sad and small and petulant. That video, if people haven't seen, of him being chased by a reporter, or I don't even know if it is a reporter. I think it might be just a civilian, just a cool person being like, hey, your name's in the Epstein files. What's going on? And he, like, I have never seen the face of a murderer before, but the sheer rage and hatred in this guy's face. I mean, and his veins are always very close to bursting out of his skin suit, but even by his standards, pretty bad. Maybe that's what we'll end with. Good news. We love good news on this channel.
Now, moving on, we see the good news wherever we are.
We love seeing the good news. Peter Thiel asked about Epstein. Boom, 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 boom. Okay, cool. I found it. Before we watch this, I will just say I've got an interview coming out that I will edit. It's very good and exciting. I think it is good. You'll see. It is with former Christian nationalist, now activist April Joy, who wrote Star Spangled Jesus, which is a really good book. And she's an influencer you might have seen on TikTok and basically all social media. But we had a really good interview about leaving Christian nationalism and deconstructing those beliefs and engaging in persuasion with people who believe that stuff. And then I'm probably going to release some kind of main channel video. That's one of my scripts. I'm trying to work on one about the rise of Nazism in the United States. I wrote a piece for my Substack about it, and that was published before the Heritage Foundation Civil War that's happening right now. All the stuff that intersects with current events, I'm just kind of trying to figure it out, because it is the more time I spend working on a thing, then the news starts surpassing it, and new details come out that make it totally confusing. The next big project I'm going to release, I need to take a little bit of a break and work on something else for my sanity after that Elon video. But the next big thing is more about the media, and I wrote this whole script and it's ready to film. But then, with this stuff about that New York Times reporter, it feels like, should I wait a little bit? Because it feels like there's going to be more here to this story. And so what I think I'm landing on is, instead of trying to do big 2-hour-long videos or 90-minute videos about this stuff, maybe break it up more like the alt-right playbook, those Innuendo Studio videos, and just kind of focus on one little thing for 20 minutes or so. That's right. Truth, justice, and the American pace, which is slow and lazy. At least it is for me. All right. And another thing that I keep meaning to do, but I just haven't done yet, is re-releasing my disfellowshipping videos, but with fixed audio and shit, because they're unlisted right now, but I want to kind of commemorate 5 years being disfellowshipped with reflection on that stuff, because I have not watched them since I posted them. The videos where I'm like, hey, my name is Jake, this is my face, and I might get disfellowship for saying that. That video is not up anymore, and the follow-up video where I talk about getting caught, and that's not up, but they were really important, at least to my life, and so I want them to be kind of up there for posterity or whatever. Not for fucking history books, but just for me. But the reason why I took them down is because they're so bad. And I fear somebody watching that, and that's their first exposure to the channel, and it just, the audio is totally out of sync with the lip movements, and it's dog shit, and then they're like, well, I'm never watching that channel again. So that's why I took them down, and I just need to fix them up. But I figured I'll take the time to actually watch it, since I will have to fix the videos, and I can provide some reflections on that. And yeah, I remember very vividly recording them, but the actual contents of them, I really don't. So I think it would be good just for my own healing. And, I've been working seriously on Not a Cult. My viewers know I've got a lot of little projects I'm doing, but basically that project just got slightly delayed because I've had other opportunities to work on, and I want this book, this XJW horror novel, to be really, really good. And I see a version of it that is a hit, or that can be published traditionally, and so I'm really trying to make sure it's perfect, because I do kind of want it to be not my last word on Jehovah's Witnesses, but that needs to be a turning of the page for me, because it's definitely everything I would want to say about this religion in a book. I'm not going to write a memoir, but this thing is important. So I've been working on that and remembering why I needed a break, because it's a little emotionally exhausting dredging up all this stuff. But, we don't have a Leia Remini of the XJW community, so god damn it, I have no choice but to be famous. So start submitting me for pilot season so I could get on a network sitcom for a long time, and then I can be famous and speak out about it. Okay, let's watch Peter Thiel be a little whiny, scared, tantrum boy who doesn't want to be yelled at.
Have any comments about
So mad.
Palantir's surveillance of the American
Maddest
people,
walk I've ever seen. The face of a murderer, the face of somebody who wants to slaughter. Let me look at this vein. Have you ever seen a vein like this on a human? No, I don't think I have.
I think people are
It actually looks like a
concerned
swastika vein.
about that last particular one. You're setting up a Big Brother surveillance system, and people know it, sir. You think the American people want this surveillance tech being used against them?
Oh my god, he's so fucking mad. I'm not a jaw clencher. What do I do when I'm mad? I don't know. Yell into a live stream webcam? I mean, Christina will vouch for this. I'm not like a yeller. When I get mad, it's weird. I don't think I have a thing like this, but that's the thing with Peter Thiel is I feel like he's never experienced this kind of rage before. He doesn't even understand this level of hatred. Well, I think he did feel it maybe when he killed his boyfriend that one time. Allegedly, maybe. I actually haven't looked into that at all. We should do a stream on that so I can figure out what's going on. Crying when I'm mad. You know what? There it is. That's what I do. Yes. Crying. That's true. That's what I do.
You're meeting with them.
Oh, this guy. But here, he's regained a little bit of confidence. Or maybe this is just the side of his head that doesn't have a swastika vein trying to push itself out. He's like, oh, right, I'm the richest person in the world, and I can kill as many people as I want, and nobody can do anything. I'd kidnap 1,000 children before I let this company die. And I've already killed people and gotten away with it. So what do I have to worry about?
People are waking up to what you're doing there, sir. That's why we're here covering this.
No, he's getting mad again. He's getting upset again. Worth noting, not the biggest security detail I've ever seen. But you can see, I mean, there is a reason why these guys are moving to, that's it, I believe. But man, there is a reason why these people are moving on to military bases. Like Stephen Miller, people wrote mean messages to him on sidewalk chalk, on the sidewalk outside of his house. And that is enough for him to pick up and move his entire family to a military base because he is that terrified of retribution. I mean, these people know. They know that they are breaking the law. They know that they're doing a fascist takeover of the United States. Like, especially Stephen Miller. Are you fucking kidding me? Like, they know. Their heroes in history are people that were tried and hanged, who were killed in battle, assassinated, or killed themselves due to, I don't know, some slight crisis of conscience or, not wanting to go to jail. That's like all the people who these people idolize are dead fascists. And so they fucking know. They know what they're doing. They know that we're in a war, and they know that it ain't going so good for them. And that everybody who cares, which is an increasing amount of people, know that these guys are pedophiles. Like, not hyperbolic, throwing out words on the internet pedophiles, but honest to God, this guy is a child rapist. Like, and is working his ass off to defend them. And gets murder face when he's asked about it by a nice guy with a soft voice walking next to him. Okay, well that's good. That's nice to see that these people they have moments where they have to feel their impotent, pathetic rage. And I look forward to the day, and I'm being a little saucy here, but I do not condone political violence. What I want more than anything, and what was so demoralizing about Jeffrey Epstein's death in prison was that he didn't have to face his accusers in court. Like court hearings where people where the evidence is presented like that can be really healing for a nation. It has an impact, and I want to live in a world where we see this guy and his annoying, gross face sat down on trial just like Alex Jones was, and it's I think it'll happen. I think it'll happen because these guys aren't geniuses. They're not. They're not geniuses. They're not smarter than you. They're not better at you than anything other than having more resources. Is Peter Thiel, does he has kids? Ah, yes. Crying when angry is a sign of the feminization of masculine traits. I know. Hey, by the way, thanks QC Man for being a member for 10 months. I don't know if it will either, but isn't it nice to think about? I mean, what else am I going to do? Assume that I live in a world where nothing good happens? Some good things are happening, like the truth getting out there. And you see, it doesn't take much for them to go into freak out mode. They're scared of this shit, and they should be. Because it's reprehensible. And what I also like seeing is that they know that their lives are shameful. And they know that they have dirty, awful things that they have lied to people about, that they hide, and every day they have found some fucking way to live with themselves. I don't understand. I mean, I guess other than they have a unique pathology of their brain that it lets them be essentially amoral creatures, but they know it's shameful, they know it's disgusting, and they know it because they accuse other people of being it all the time. And it doesn't matter if it's what I do think is so important about this is that it really isn't about ideology. It's about class and sex and power and men trying to hide their transgressions. And it's something that powerful people of all political persuasions took part in, including Noam Chomsky too, right? I mean, Bill Gates. Doesn't matter. This is what it's all about, is people who think they are better than other people and spend all of their time creating an environment and trying to teach other humans to hate other people. And this thing, I mean, it is politicized, but on a gut level, every single human being knows that this shit's wrong. And the weird, creepy justifications that Megyn Kelly tries to make, that's her own freaky justification in her brain for, I don't know why she is sympathetic to this. Let's consider 15-year-old girls consenting adults. I don't think everyone mentioned in the email. No, that's true. But a lot of people were, and a lot of people just knew about it. I don't know if that, that New York Times journalist is not, I don't know, that guy went to the island or something, but sitting on this story, Michael Wolff, what the fuck is going on with Michael Wolff? I mean, that guy's always been a muckraker of the first degree, just a sleazebag whose only seeming skill as a journalist was being mysteriously somehow able to get in good with the dirtbags and get them to give him unprecedented access. I got a lot of fucking questions about that guy. No matter how I slice it, he was covering up some shit for a long time, seemingly for totally cynical careerist purposes. Stephen Hawking on the plane. I think if we can get people past this hurdle of this is about Republicans versus Democrats and the left and the right and women versus men and shit, it's no, man, this is just evil shit. It's evil, corrupt shit. I was just ranting. Okay. Well, thanks, everyone. What should we watch as we drift off to sleep? What should we watch? I could play something called JWB Come Intro. That's what we'll watch. Peace.
Welcome to JW Cast Brought In. Since all of us come, you'll appreciate this month's program, which focuses on the topic of comp. We'll learn how comp can bring joy to the giver and the receiver.